I always tell people I was fortunate enough to have distinction, and I think it's one of the things that people don't realize. Sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have a bad day, but
Sure.
you have to have both of them to understand the good day. I think once you become or you awaken your competitive spirit, you enjoy, the idea of getting better. In your son or daughter's path in life, they're going to meet that level because the world standard is reality.
Hey, what's going on today, guys? Steve from SaltyFresh Perspective podcast, checking in here with another episode. My guest today is the first and only Irish-born player to play in the NBA, former Orlando Magic, former Phoenix Sun, and all-around cool guy to get to talk to. Please give it up for Pat Burke.
All right. Ready to roll?
Ready?
Awesome, man. Well, sitting here, episode of the podcast today, Pat Burke. How you doing, man? Thanks for doing this.
No, thank you. I'm doing well.
Awesome. It's nice out here. We're out on the west side of Orlando. We're sitting here somewhere where you're familiar, a basketball hoop, right?
Yeah.
That'll probably be picked up in audio a little bit, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. So the reason why I was excited to talk to you, I got a couple of reasons, but we'll start with one.
Okay.
Born in Orlando, told you. Long-time Orlando Magic fan. And you actually played for the Magic, didn't you?
That's right.
Hey, awesome. So, talking about basketball, right? You probably get this a lot, but you were the first Irish-born basketball player. Am I getting that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, the first and only? Has there been another one?
First and only right now, yeah.
Okay. And why? Why aren't there that many Irish-born basketball players?
That's a great question. And I think, some of the people in Ireland, the basketball side of it, are working on it. They're working on the future. So there's not a huge history of basketball in Ireland. They do have professional leagues. They do have it in college. They do have it in the community centers. But its popularity is kind of dwarfed by Irish sports. There's an association called the GAA, the Gaelic Athletic Association, and Ireland has some unique sports, hurling, Gaelic football. So they take on more of an interest, especially at the youth level. Like with any small geographical area, it's like when the kids are growing up and they look for their heroes, they want to do what's popular. So as basketball is here with the NBA and the kids are mimicking moves, in Ireland, it's the GAA sports that take the lion's share of TV showcase. So the kids would be watching that. So basketball would be more of a the fifth, sixth sport. So there's not a lot of kids running into the basketball court to pursue that.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, right? I mean, obviously, kids get into things early on, and like you said, looking up at your heroes, right? But I've never seen hurling, but I imagine it's probably its own technical sport in itself. You're throwing something in hurling,
You're
right?
actually, you have a wood, I don't want to call it a stick, but you have a wood stick, and it's one of the fastest sports in the world because of the speed of the ball. But it's played basically on a soccer pitch, and players, there's a ball, it kind of looks like a baseball, and they have to, when they run with it, they have to balance it or hit it with the stick and catch it and retrieve it, and then when they're passing it, they're smashing it through the air. So I mean, you see it every now and then. You'll see it in America on a Guinness beer commercial or something like that. So it's definitely unique, but it's competitive, and there's definitely an audience for it.
I'm sure you get this brought up to you a lot, but is that a cool feeling to be the first and only of something? I mean, that's rare, to meet an individual like that.
It's interesting when you stop and think about it, but it was one of those moments where I think my parents probably think about it more with pride. When I was when I made the Orlando Magic, when then became an NBA player, that's when my mom and dad had realized it. They're like, "Do you know you're the first Irish-born NBA player?"
They were the first one to tell you that? Your parents?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't like hit that threshold and say, "Oh wow, I'm the first."
You weren't striving to be the first Irish-born NBA player. It just worked out.
Even as a youth, I wasn't pursuing the goal of becoming an NBA player. My path didn't speak, hey, this is what we want to do. And that little accolade of, being the first wasn't in my mind.
So you weren't. When did you start playing basketball?
I didn't start playing until I was 16.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What were you doing before that?
Yeah. A lot of the interviews that I have about this is my family moved to America when I was 4. That's hence why I don't have an Irish accent.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 6. So my older siblings, they remember the move coming over. I don't. I have no memory of it. But when I was around 7 or 8 years old, my aunt on my dad's side, she was at the house, and she had shared, Pat, would you like to play ice hockey? I've just signed David, my cousin, who was the same age, up. And so it was a little disturbance in an Irish household because, you're coming to America, and I think a lot of people can understand this. When you're coming to another culture, many times fear doesn't have you jumping in with confidence into the, sports or what have you. And so when that question came up in the kitchen, I think everybody kind of stopped eating and looked at her like, ice hockey?
Yeah.
Like what? And so I went out for it and enjoyed it and played it for about 8 years. And then a huge growth spurt changed my course of interest, let's say.
Okay. So you get some height on you, and what? People start pushing you towards basketball?
That's
okay.
It. Yeah. So I moved from one town to the other, and not even knowing that my body was going through that. I grow 7 inches in a summer. And in that growth, I'm around new people, so they know me now as the tall person, but I don't know what they're thinking about me because I'm not sitting there measuring my height. So, then it became, like you said, it's an influence. Be like, hey, you should go out for basketball.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, where's that coming from? Until I actually realize, I'm 6'5" as a freshman, and then I don't go out because
freshman in high school. You're
freshman
6'5".
in high school.
Holy cow!
So then the next year I'm 6'7", and now the influence, and that kind of reverbing like pressure is, hey, you should really do this. And I went out. I remember stepping on the court.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you played in college too, right? You went to Auburn, so you stuck with it then, obviously.
Yeah.
So you found some love for it, or just
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Once you become or you awaken your competitive spirit, you enjoy the idea of getting better. You enjoy what is the strategic skill set necessary to actually do this. How do you do this more effectively?
Right.
And that consumed me. So it was then joining a culture. Now you're labeled a basketball player. So what do basketball players do? They look for courts like this.
Yeah.
Where do we play? And then you're starting to speak different. You're dressing differently. And I think I enjoyed that so much that it became, how do I become better at this? So from 16 with no skill set to 18 and getting a scholarship, even with the potential and the height, it has a lot to do with the leadership involved. Yeah.
And I'm sure not playing, as a young age until you were 14, right? You had to develop skills a different way too, because a lot of that stuff starts early for people. So
Sure.
The leadership you had, the coaches you had, probably had to spend maybe a little more time and energy. Was that the case?
Yeah. Well, it's funny it's great that you asked that question because it really lands it. Is when I was in that transfer period of going from ice hockey, the skills don't transfer, but the concepts, of understanding defense and offense and teamwork and these things, they were there. So when I first got there, I always tell people I was fortunate enough to have distinction, and I think it's one of the things that people don't realize. Sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have a bad day, but you have to have both of them to understand the good day, and the bad. So I had 2 coaches. My first coach was extremely righteous, was autocratic, just sharing, this is your limit, this is what you can do, and this is what you can't do. And for any young person, that becomes a little bit of a stamp, and it becomes something that they're hindering your growth. Who are anybody in your life to tell you what you can and can't do?
Right.
But to motivate somebody, harness energy together, and to move forward, you can tackle a bunch of things. So this person was not that person in my life. They were the person who actually wanted to tell me what they thought, in no effort to actually assist me in getting better, if that makes sense. So my second coach was the one that actually changed everything. I moved from Cleveland, Ohio at that time, and met that first coach, was ready to quit the sport, didn't want anything to do with it. And then when I moved to the new school, again, 6'7", everybody was excited. Hey, have you seen the new kid, right?
The big guy's coming.
Yeah. So you're walking in with potential, but you're still not walking in with skill set. So you know the truth, but everybody else sees the potential. So this new coach actually came up to me and asked me, hey, are you the new guy? Do you want to go shoot some hoops in the gym? And I'm telling you, Steve, I was so guarded from the experience before that I probably spoke in some deep tone from the depths of, HE double hockey sticks. I was just like, I'm not a basketball player. I had already had it in my mind.
Well, you've been hearing that for a long time now, too.
So he came in and he said, I just want to shoot some hoops. And I said, all right. So we went into the gym, and going back to what you were asking, is the early start of this was I had no bad habits because I had never played. So if you and I were going to walk in to go play darts somewhere and we've never thrown a dart and there's a professional coach there, maybe they can set us on a trajectory that's going to be faster than somebody who's played, barroom darts for a couple years, but they're throwing them, some awkward way.
Right.
So when I walked in, he had that ability to communicate that, and what he did, it was very exciting.
Almost like a blank canvas, right? And I've said this to people before in my corporate life, where it's harder to break the bad behaviors of individuals than it is to teach them the right behavior from the beginning, right? So that's interesting from a basketball standpoint. You had the right coach with a blank canvas and kind of taught you the right things from the jump.
How would I say this? I stay clear from the word right, though. That's the one thing is, people a lot of times will say, like, hey, is this the right way or the wrong way? And that's one of the things that I've noticed over the years working with leadership, working with other people is, when we're doing something, when we're on a path to achieve a goal, we can be effective at doing it, or we can be ineffective doing it. We're taking the steps closer, and it's all looking at the approach. Now, if an approach is right or wrong, then we're at a stop point because it's built on whose standard. Like in medical world, there is the medical standard for brain surgery or whatever that is, or to take blood pressure, those measurements. So whenever we're in leadership and we're talking about ways to do things, we're really talking about effective ways to do things and ineffective. And a lot of people get caught up on the right and wrong because that puts somebody in a position of being right or a position of being wrong in either way. But if we take it away, we can actually look at it and say, okay, your effort is here. You're looking to do this. You're motivated. Now let's see how effective we are at doing it. And so when I used to work with kids, I would have that same way to articulate it with them. And there wasn't a righteousness space in it because now we're both exploring it together. And that's what my coach taught me, that second coach, early on.
Wow. And that's in high school you're learning that, right? So it took me till I was in my 30s to start realizing some of this stuff that you're saying. But you're speaking my language. I think right and wrong is so subjective to the individual. And if you're born here, you're born in Ireland, or you're born in Iraq for that matter, your perception of right and wrong is extremely different. So it's funny, I speak to my children in the way you just said, which is, it's more about the effort you put into something, and you're going to mess up. I hate when people say, well, don't do this or don't do that because it's wrong. Like, well, you mean you never did those things? But, part of learning in my podcast, what I'm trying to accomplish is growing my own mind in that way. So I can teach my children some of the things that I'm learning while I'm out here and doing it.
I'm the same. Like my parenting to some may look like I'm standing off, but you allow people that opportunity for their experience. I have, let's say, my two boys. I have twins, and they played high school basketball. And when they're owning their own experience, I'm not getting involved in it. Now, I can ask them questions, and I think there's a lot of buzzwords that go around with, a few years ago, a couple NBA players were speaking of their depression, and they started talking about mental health. And our society doesn't communicate in a way in which we are asking these questions, so that people are, how would I say, they have the confidence that, hey, this is a safe space to talk about this. Like we're all just globules, right? We're just working to do something ineffectively or effectively, and when we do or don't, these feelings get, how would I say, heightened. So when I'm talking to them about me standing off, like people will say, hey, why aren't you screaming at the game? Like why aren't you? And I'm like, what am I going to do in the middle of a game? Like they're playing sports, and my definition of sports is a celebration of life while you're watching a moment where people are sharing how they're, how would I say, making choices. if you're getting trapped or you're feeling the pressure or a referee makes a call or you make a great play, you're watching the choices that people are making. And some of them may be, how would I say, they may irk people or they may excite people. But that's that person's experience, whoever that player is. And even sitting in that stands is like, I'm going to allow them to have theirs. Like, and if I get in the way, why do I want to get in the way? Because my ego wants my kids to win. My ego wants, something to be better for them. Yeah. Well, when I was going through it, like, I value those two coaches. Yeah. I value them the same. Yeah. If that one coach didn't teach me righteousness and an ineffective way to work with kids, then how would I ever understood the other one? Yeah. And the blessing inside of that is I had the two of them, and God put them in that order. If I had reversed the two, where would I be? As far as experience, what would that have done? So,
it's an interesting balance, right? Because part of me, the competitive side, wants my children to do well, and yes, wants them to win. But to your point, if you're in the stands yelling and screaming and getting all heated, that takes away from what it is that they're doing. And like you said about the ego, it makes it about you then, right? And are those kids going to enjoy hearing their mother or their father screaming or getting in fights, right? You see people, parents getting in fights at high school or even lower level type things, right?
Well, I think that has a lot to do with self-reflection, self-awareness. Yeah. When we look back in today's day and age, it's probably more important for us to do this than ever, is to look back as we're programmed with attachments. Like, when did I start to believe this, or when did I think this, or why is it I'm so attached to winning or to taking that on? And when you're looking at a way of going, okay, I'm going to revisit this every game because I can't help those attachments. Way back when I was 5 and something happened, or when I was 12, or that coach that did that. I don't like that feeling, but that's mine to own, and it's mine to actually show where am I today with that wisdom and experience to actually deliver how I'm going to make choices today. So if I'm screaming in the middle of a game, it's like, why am I screaming? And when parents come up to me, my friends, hey, why aren't you? I'm like, well, why are you doing that? Yeah. Because we can both look at this and say, our kids are out there playing, right? And the goal of the kids really is to have fun. Right. So let them have their fun. And if something pops up and they want to talk about it later, let's talk about it. Yeah. But that's their experience. Yeah. And pushing them or pulling them into some sort of success. Like, you hear parents like, run or get that, but what are you doing? You want to stop and just freeze the earth for a second. Go, hey, what are you doing? Why are you so, I want, like, yeah, see, your first word is the telltale. I. You said I. Why are you making it about you? Like, let them have it. And if they want to come back and communicate something, they get to experience everything. Like, like one of the symptoms I see of, like, without hypocrisy taking me over, is like when you see coaching, and coaching is just screaming, and the kids are just looking back at the coach, you're looking at symptoms, but if you allow them to play and you're not screaming, they learn. Their trajectory is much faster. Yeah. Hey, in the third quarter, hey, when that occurred where you got trapped, what happened there? Well, if it's not about punishment and it really is about exploration, think about it. The kid's like, well, yeah, coach, I did this, and okay. So now let's bring forth awareness. Let's communicate it. Let's create a relationship where we can talk these things out. And when I do, there is no punishment for it. Yeah. There's just, hey, okay, well, I've been there too, man. Yeah. Okay, so how do we do that the next time? I don't know, coach. Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think? Well, what if we have some codes? What if we communicate something, or I'm not, sitting there talking about it? Like whenever I coach kids, I try to relate to what's a child's world filled with? Let's say, school and playgrounds.
A lot of new stuff in general, yeah.
Yeah, right. So when we talk to them in city leagues or, just friendly basketball leagues, it's like saying, hey, what would be a safe distance to get rid of the ball so there's not that safety concern of the ball going to get trapped or taken away? And they're like, I don't know. It's like, well, let's go with the code word. Like, what about, like, how would you say the length of a car is? Oh, from here to here, coach. Okay, so if I say the word car during the thing, I'm not screaming at you, get rid of the ball, pick it up. It's just car. There is no emotional detachment from it. There is no attachment to it. Like Mom, Coach Burke was screaming car at me. Like he was like, when I do this, a lot of the parents and they're like, did he just say hamburger? Well, myself and that player have a coded conversation where I'm saying hamburger, at the free throw line, but we've gone through something that they go, oh, that's right, hamburger, that means this, and they're going through, and they're not taking in the attachment of, Coach is telling me to bend every time I get to the free throw line. Well, okay, let's take that away because that doesn't feel good, and I've already been in that position to know what that feels like, and it never made me play better. It just made me a little more chaotic. Let's create a more adverse situation. What?
But it seems like, and this is kind of maybe opposite of human nature a little bit, but it seems like people, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is you realize things when you realize something for yourself, you tend to believe it, right? Instead of, and the coach relationship is a difficult one because you are trying to teach them something, but I like the way you're structuring it and the way you're talking about it is let them figure it out for themselves. Ask them, get them included in whatever the decision is or whatever codes come up. But it seems like people have a hard time thinking for themselves. They want to just stick to a side, and we don't have to get into all the things that people stick to sides about, but is that opposite of human nature, do you think, to an extent where people don't think for themselves as much anymore?
Well, how do you empower somebody with a new exercise? Like if what I'm saying sounds like that's kind of goofy, but it does sound like it works. Well, then how do you put that into a position where you say, hey, look, here's the first 3 pages. Let's give this a shot at a practice. Let's take 10 kids, and we're going to just have them do something. Like, we're going to figure this out. And a coach gets to exercise something different. Because, again, is the attachment that we all have and the ego that we have is, I know basketball. Don't tell me I don't know basketball. No, I didn't say you didn't know basketball. What I'm sharing is, what if there was another way to teach basketball that may be more effective? Like, who wouldn't be inspired to do things that are more effective? Because you start to realize then is that human condition is, what's the agenda? Is the agenda I want to get better and be more effective so I can help these kids, or is it I just want to win? And when people want to walk away from something new, that it's, again, is I don't want to get into a hypocritical position, but it's like you're starting to see, well, why is it they don't want to? Like, do they think they're right? And that's where I get a little bit nervous when I hear people say the right or wrong way to do something, right? What if it's effective, ineffective? Like, when you're teaching kids to coach or to shoot a ball, there are some standards to it, right? But the child may not know that. The child's goal is to put the ball inside that hoop.
Right.
And maybe they don't have the full strength in their legs, their back, their upper body. So they're just throwing it at the goal. And the coach walks up and says, hey, you're sticking your elbow out and you're kicking your foot out. Thanks. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Well, I'm a kid, and my agenda is just to put the ball in the thing. It's not to sit here and practice Steph Curry's perfect form. But in the mind of the coach, it's almost like we create a space so far that we say, this is my condition. I know what I know, but is my approach to sharing or assisting effective enough to the person that I'm working with? And did they ask for it? That's a whole other conversation. Is the timing right?
Right.
I used to have people, I ran a facility for a while, and parents they'd bring their kids in, and the kid never wanted to be there. So if he didn't, like, how are we all working together?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a conversation that works prior to that about it. But we'll never know because the child came in, and now...
Why? Because the parents want them to be there? Or?
Well, again, it's like watching the game. I want you to do this. Okay, so it's about the parent. What if it was about the parent creating a new conversation? Say, hey Steve, we're looking at 10-year-old Steve. Hey Steve, what are some of the things you're interested in? I like this, and I like that, and I like that. And what are some of the things that you don't like? That's just as an important conversation as the other one. I don't like being in front of a bunch of people. No, I don't want to be under the pressure of this. Okay. Well, what if we work together and we just kind of keep our eyes open and about some of the things that we can do? Okay. If you just sign somebody up for something and they never wanted to be in it, do you think it's really going to exceed expectations right away?
Yeah.
Or you have an expectation. I liked it. I played basketball, so you should. So again, there's a lot of exploration there, but I know we're jumping around.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it goes back to what I was sharing about that first 2 pages of exercise. Here's an approach that we can articulate in a different way, and if we do, you'll start to see something. Like when someone comes in and they're completely righteous, are they cognitive enough to understand the symptoms that are occurring through that way of speaking to people? If I just tell you that's right, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong, are they actually watching the mannerisms and the body language of people who are being pushed into someone's standard?
Or do they not even care about those individuals?
Yeah, like this is the right way to do it. So the person who's taken the leadership role is just doing what they do. Some people call it old school. Like there's this old school way, right? Hey, get on the line.
Yeah.
And let's just, you guys don't like my way, get on the line. Okay. Hey, coach, we really love playing for you because we love all this punishment. It's like, well, okay, so what do you guys want to do? Well, why don't we ask? If you actually ask the end user what motivates you, now you're getting into a relationship, which it could be kind of scary. But they never do it. So again, as you look at this back end of what I was sharing before, is like the NBA players, they're speaking mental health and all of this. Well, we are not putting these how would I say this construct of like checking in with people at the beginning of our huddles or at the end of them. Hey guys, how we all doing? Hey Steve, how you feel today? Hey Steve, was there anything that you want to go over? What do kids do? They ain't gonna say anything. Because they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe to get into it because, again, as if that coach is coming off autocratic or righteous, what am I gonna do? Say something and get my head chopped off? I mean, there's no way I'm getting into this conversation.
And what you're saying, and we're relating it to basketball, but you can fit that into a lot of different aspects of life in your relationships and simply the way we communicate. And I'm glad we're going all over the place because I think that's needed in today's day and age because the way people communicate now is through social media, through X number of characters, whatever the case may be. So why do you think it is that kids are fearful of saying what it is that they actually want? Is it because no one's asked them before?
I think it's the outcome. It's the outcome, right? So like you do something and you get this as an outcome, right? So if I get A's, Mom and Dad are going to give me $100, right? So now some kids are motivated by that, and that's it is what it is. Kids today, and probably for generations, are submissive, and they go into a default mode in front of autocratic leadership, teachers, adults. Listen, you're going to sit here and you're going to listen to me. I'm taking every word in, and I'm going to change my life because it's that easy, right? And no, it's not that easy. But what they do is kids are playing a game and they don't even know it's occurring until like I asked my daughter the other day, I was like, hey, when was the first time you realized just to stay quiet when adults are talking? And she kind of laughed, right? But she didn't even know, it's like you're bringing up something that they're like, you can see that? I'm like,
you notice that?
Yeah. And all kids are doing it, right? You go into the public school system and teachers or administration is taking on this large space of working with individuals who are, of course, emotionally filled. They don't truly understand how the structure and how it's all working, in the big sense of school. And they have all these questions. But it's easier to push forward and kind of hey, shut up and do this. It's the best thing for you. And like, well, that doesn't feel good. Keep poking the bear. And then when the bear gets upset, it's like, well, what's this kid's problem? Like, he's in school, he should understand all the blessings in his life. No, he's a kid.
He's a kid.
Yeah, he's a kid. We forgot what it's like to be kids. We forgot that, when we have an imagination or we just want to go out and play and we kind of just do things. And when we do that, we've kind of lost sight of just pushing people and forcing them into things. So like a lot of kids, you see it in them, because the symptoms are there. Kid goes to practice, doesn't say anything, gets into the car. The parent, the adult, is sitting there like, what'd the coach say? But he didn't say anything. Or the kid's quiet. That's a symptom. that's a symptom of something. If the kid's getting in the car and he's like, a little bit excited or something, maybe it was a really good practice. But maybe there's a culture inside of that team that they're on that your word means nothing. Imagine that. Imagine that feeling. You go to work every day or you go into a team and your word means nothing. And you're inadequate at your skill set. And you're going, wait a minute, I love the game of basketball and you're making me not love it?
Yeah.
Or, hey, I like eating pizza and the way I eat it is not right?
Now I hate it.
I don't ever want to order a pizza again,
Huh.
So it's strange in its way because it's almost this mechanism of humanity. It's like you're taught a certain way or you experience a way, and now you repetitively put that back out. But then we start to like visit new cultures and we see things that we like, and we're like, I really like the way you talk to people, man. You go, well, what if I told you there was a formula behind it? You go, what do you mean? Like, my dad didn't talk to me like this, but I did work with somebody for about 4 years who broke me down, like crying and realizing how much of a righteous jerk I was and how I had built myself a world that I thought I knew everything. And then I became that first coach that we talk about. And when I started to realize in the mirror, like, you're ineffective. You are not effectively helping people. You're just spitting out what you think, and you think that they're taking it all in.
Wow.
And that
just because of who you are.
Just because of being, like on what authority does somebody know something and think that they're actually creating transformation? Like, Steve, I'm going to change your life. Oh, really? What background do you have? Or what formula do you use? I'm going to tell you everything I've done. Like, oh, that's great. That's I'll probably get up early tomorrow, but probably not for every day because it was just a really good story.
Yeah. But I think people are fearful of that introspection. They're fearful of looking at themselves in the mirror and making that call. Like, maybe in back to right and wrong, people have a hard time saying when they're wrong, like maybe, or how I've lived my life is wrong.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point where you were able to look in that mirror, strip your ego away, and be like, I'm not the person that I thought I was?
When you build a relationship with kids, that your relationship looks like this. I'm going to tell you what I think when I think it, and I'm going to take back everything that you're saying. You're going to find out really quick that you're a hypocrite. Because kids are going to sit there and go, hey, coach, you told us this, but you showed up late. Hey, you're saying this, but aren't you like 20 pounds overweight? There's no argument or getting back at them. It's like, allow them to speak.
Yeah.
Because if what they're saying is truth to it, well, then you're going to start to look in the mirror and go, you know what? How can I sit on a soapbox and tell them this? And then I'm over here doing these things. Right? Hey, let's talk about integrity. Okay, coach, you go first. Let's bring in your family or let's bring in your coworkers and let's talk about integrity. No, let's talk about integrity and close the doors. I don't want anybody else knowing.
No one can hear this.
And it's like, what?
Wow.
So I started working with the kids, and right when I retired from basketball, I had to figure out what am I going to do now. And so I went into my major of communications. I went and did some broadcasting for basketball games. And then a friend asked me, do you ever train kids? Thought never occurred to me. And I started to train them. And it was in my backyard, about 20 kids. And I was like, this is a lot of fun. This is rewarding. Now, this is early on. So I don't even realize, I'm not even creating any transformation. These kids are walking away with 3%. My ego is saying to me, I like this. The kids are like going, I wish I could learn more. But they're not telling me that. So I decide with my wife and I sit down and we talk about it. I'm like, hey, what if we start a training facility? Make a small investment, open up a little warehouse space. And that first year was probably the most stressful year of my life. And the most stress outside of not having a business background, not understanding marketing, not understanding enrollment, not understanding leverage, not understanding any nonprofit, all of this. The biggest thing that was killing me was I could see that I wasn't creating any effective change in the kids. And so when I went into a mentor relationship with a leader, that broke me down. For 4 years, I would sit there and I would just go over and over and over. And when you start to realize that the ineffectiveness is inside you, well, then what are you effective at? It can break you down. Like you talked about fear. Humans like to take the path of least resistance.
Sure. It's easier.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, I can just sit here and just put a couple NBA jerseys up on the wall and I'm the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's talk to the people that you're working with. You know, yeah, he's cool. Yeah, he played in the NBA. This is great. Hey, what have you learned here? We have fun in here. Okay. Well, what else? You know, if there's not a true testimonial that's having a conversation of some metric change or something, what is it? Hey, I like hanging out with you, man. You make me smile. Cool. Let me charge you for this because now I got a recreation center, so let's charge you. Like, yeah, okay. What am I getting?
Not as cool anymore.
Yeah. What am I getting out of this?
Yeah.
So that year was really when I self-reflected, and then when I started to gain the assistance of looking at myself. You know, it's not me looking at myself, but it's someone asking me the hard questions. When those answers are coming up, you know, which they taught me a lot too, is when humans use the word try a lot, like, you know, if any of the listeners are out there going, hey, this is kind of goofy and I kind of like this one. Well, listen for this. When you're around friends and family or people and they use the word try a lot, think about the word try. You're actually, your brain is actually telling you what the next word is going to be as you're speaking. So if you say, hey, what are you up to, man? Hey, Pat, what's going on? Yeah, man, I'm trying to get my driver's license, and then you know, I'm really trying to put the band back together. Well, that means things can be effectively working and ineffectively working at the same time because I'm trying. Like, I haven't accomplished it. I'm trying. Hey, I'm trying to get in the NBA. Oh, what are you doing? Now here comes the truth. Well, I kind of sort of shoot hoops out at this church outdoor goal like once every weekend, something like that. You're like, yeah, good luck, buddy.
Yeah, good luck.
So you're hearing all this, but the try is not an accident. It's our way of saying something that we want this goal, but we're not achieving it. But I'm trying to do it. Oh, well, what are you doing to try? And that, again, that's another one of those intimate, honest, like, build-ups to be like, hey, no judgment here, man. Like, we all try at something,
right?
But you're using that word a lot. So I can't effectively get it done. You know, like my 19-year-old son, he just enrolled in college in Ireland, right? So he went over to Ireland early on in this school year, and he had to come back because of the pandemic. And when he came back, you know, a 19-year-old kid, he's not equipped with the same business sense you and I do at our age and experience now. So he hasn't mastered any level of communication, of requests, or, you know, copying somebody on an email, all of these wonderful things that we know how to do because we've been in that. So I'm watching him, again, from the side. Yeah. And he's coming up and, Dad, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying, and I'm like, okay, how's it working? Yeah. It's not working. Okay. When do you think he's going to stop and ask for help? When the whole thing crashes?
When it all, yeah.
Well, if it does or doesn't, he has to own natural consequences. If I go in and start writing all the emails for him, what's he learning? Nothing. Hey, Dad's going to jump in. Like, hey, buddy, how's it going? Yeah. You know, I know it's pissing him off that I keep asking him, but what am I? Like, I'm just the opportunity to say, I never yell at you about this. Yeah. I'm just saying, hey, you know, what can we do together to do it? I don't know. And that's a great, I mean, here's another one. When kids share, I don't know, that's the most honest form of leadership they can do. Because what do adults do?
Oh, I know this. I know that.
Where's that report? Where's it? What are you? Well, this computer was, and then this person, and here comes all the junk. Right? But if they just say, I don't know, you know, I don't know how to do this. Yeah. Okay. Well, what's the challenge in it? What's the fear is the person you're talking with is you're fearful of the repercussions with them because maybe you understand that their process is not to help and support and no judgment, or you've gone through so many of those coach ones that they're negative and they're going to tell you something that you hide it. But kids, now we're taking these little kids, when they say, I don't know, we're forcing them into they do. Yeah, you do. You know what the rules are. I don't know the rules.
I just told you I don't know.
I just told you in the beginning of the year. I go, oh, that's right. You did tell him in the beginning of the year. And it was the most important thing that I ever had in my life because when I go home and I'm not even eating dinner at night and I got all these challenges, I'm remembering the first day of school when you told me those rules. You're right. And thank you for the compassion and just following up of where I am in my life. You know, you can't even say my name correctly. I mean, but they don't want to experience that much relationship, like justice.
Yeah.
Because it's easier.
Yeah.
The path of least resistance.
Sure.
I want to tell you the way I feel. I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to tell you how to do it. And then I'm going to have the expectation that you took it all in, and then you're going to actually be able to do it effectively.
And you remember it, and you apply it, and you do it because I said so.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people just, to go back to what you were sharing, is like, looking in the mirror is great, but you're still looking in the mirror at yourself from your self perspective. A true, honest relationship is one of the most healthy things you can have. I've got a couple mentors, and this is going to sound funny. Every now and then they give me a kick in the pants. I mean, like with a cowboy boot, right? And it doesn't feel good at first. But if they don't tell me, I'm never getting better. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, okay. And if I walk away from that conversation or I'm driving, you just sit there and think. Because you're only what you know from experience of reading it or seeing it, hearing it, whatever. When somebody tells you something new that it's not in your process yet, you have to crunch it for a while. You can deny it, or you can just sit there and say, you know what, I'm just going to chew on this for a while. Wow, I didn't realize when I walk into the room, I don't shake everyone's hands. Man, when Steve was telling me that, he wasn't coming from a place of wanting to hurt me. Yeah. He was coming from a place saying, hey, man, you can really affect change. And what if one of the barriers was the first time you're introduced to people? What if you took the initiative? Could you imagine what the room is going to be like in an hour? And like people go, what? Like they don't really realize how special or how awesome they can be with potential. And they don't know sometimes that they're the ones that are creating the inability to get to it.
But you needed that kick in the pants from the mentor to be able to at least start to look at that in a different way.
So then going back to those 2 or 3 pages to exercise, they were giving me something new. So I've been through a doorway a million zillion times, right? Like everybody. You walk into a room, you walk into the grocery store, you walk into a party, you walk into a church, you walk into a restaurant. We've all been there. Yeah. What if you were given 2 or 3 pages with some different instructions on how to enter that room? Then you're given the self-awareness to look back and reflect what changed. Maybe 10 business cards come your way. Maybe a girlfriend or a boyfriend opportunity. Maybe something that you never thought of. Maybe there's an alumni in the room that you didn't even know. Maybe the problem that you have at the house with the plumbing, that you can't find a plumber, maybe there's someone there who's actually going to be able to talk to you about it and relate. Maybe it's something that you don't even know, but it exceeds expectations. But those 2 or 3 pages that, just to exercise something different is exploration. Are we so content in the way that we're doing things that we think, I can never achieve that, or I've achieved everything I can? Yeah, you have. The way you do it now, because your process is so solidified, you're not even wanting to make change. You're not even wanting to go do something different. And if you do, maybe it doesn't occur the first time. There's a little thing that I used to share with kids in basketball. I'm going to go 100% at that backboard 100% of the time. Now, I'm not going to get every rebound, but I'm going to get a lot more than when I do it less, at less speed. But I've got to be willing to fail to actually succeed. And when I do that, it's going to make change. At the end of the game, when it's all tallied up, they go, man, you had 15 rebounds. They're like, yeah, man, that was awesome. I like the way this feels. So I'm going to be disciplined enough to keep doing it. And then you do it and you fail, and people are in the audience like, what a loser. The guy missed it. He shouldn't even be out there. And then it's like at the end of the season, the Rebounder of the Year award goes to Pat Burke, and you're like going, hey, I'm okay with you calling me a loser. I'm okay with the idea that my discipline is I'm not trying to get the rebounds. I'm getting the rebounds. But I'm also getting moments where I'm experiencing the fail, but I'm still getting the rebounds. And that to me is there's change inside that. There's a way of doing it. And again, it's not to go so far out, but that's just success on the physical realm, and the mental. There's a whole emotional side of that, and there's a spiritual side of that. That it's like you can excel at something, but then it's like spinning plates. Well, am I also growing spiritually? Am I also growing emotionally? Am I also growing mentally? And I am growing physically because I am getting stronger at this. But how do I balance all of those things?
Yeah. And how can you balance how you feel at the end of the day when it's just you, right? You know that you're putting maximum effort in, and that got you to number one rebounder. But if you also knew that you're only putting 60% effort and you didn't achieve that, then that's on you.
Yeah.
And for me, it makes more sense to be more comfortable with myself when I'm by myself, because in the past I wasn't that guy. Maybe it was when I was working in corporate or doing things that didn't feel like that's what I should be doing,
Sure.
But I think that's something that for me, that growth mindset in a lot of different aspects is what you should be doing in your life. And I don't like to tell people what they should and shouldn't be doing,
Sure.
but for me, I feel like I'm best served for my mental when I'm trying to grow in those aspects you just mentioned.
Yeah, and it's important to be around that culture. It's healthy. You can become a product of your environment, and it's like, if you're in one culture and it's just telling you can't do it, if I stayed with that coach all through high school, that first coach, I mean, where would
you be? Yeah,
right?
You wouldn't be you.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
you.
I could have maybe done something else and explored it, and maybe that could have been kind of a motivator of, you can't do this, you're never going to do this, but then you're motivated to do something else. Or how many conversations would I had later on in life where people are like, man, look how tall you are. Did you play basketball? No. I had this one person. You let one person talk to you like that? Well, I was 16 at the time, so I didn't have a voice. I was kind of navigating the world differently than anybody else in my family because I was so tall. And it was awkward talking to people. And then that trajectory just dips, right? And they go, from one person? Like, you don't understand how much influence one person can have.
Yeah.
Again, just like if that one page was given to him, maybe he and I could have been different. Maybe he could have put me into another space that was even more effective than the second coach.
Right.
But we'll never know. And again, that's where he was way back in 1989. I don't know where he's at today.
Sure.
And there's no ill will towards him. I'm sure that he grew and over exercising, going in that room over and over, or all those kids never actually accomplishing anything. If that happened, maybe he went and got self-awareness. Maybe it wore down after a while. Maybe the path of least resistance had some reflection to go, you know what, I'm doing as little as I can to get this done, and I have never made change in these kids' lives.
That's kind of the approach that some people take, the bare minimum. But I think as a coach relationship, that should be part of what you're trying to do, is make a noticeable impact, not just on the court or the field or whatever it is you're playing, but in themselves as an individual. And hearing you talk about it, it sounds like that's your coach relationship with kids. It's more than just, teaching them the game of whatever it is you're trying to teach them.
Well, imagine this. Imagine you grow up and a lot of people do. Imagine you grow up in a situation where, let's just say, our dads have an old Mustang antique car in the garage, right? And before dinner, he's out there polishing and working on it. And after dinner, he's polishing it. And then when he's not working on it, there's a cover on it, and you're not allowed to go anywhere near it. And if you do, you get yelled at. What is your understanding of the value of that car?
More than me.
It's more than you, right? And so you're starting to weigh that in, go, hey, Dad is caught up in that car. And we're not working on it together. We're not sharing any experience, but that's the culture you grow up. So maybe when you grow up later on in life, you say, I don't put any value into material things because I remember what it felt like.
Yeah.
Or maybe you do. Maybe I remember my dad used to have this. Man, I always wanted to get one too. And without that self-reflection, you're like what culture did I grow up in? What was the value system inside there? Like, how did we experience that?
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at that in that coach's sense, it's the same thing with those kids. What's important to coach? Bottom line is, I want to win. And if I'm going to make you feel bad, I don't care. I mean, I care, but I don't care enough to actually get caught up in it because I didn't actually ask you, how does it make you feel? I'm just going to sit here like a tornado. I said, man, coach is going to be upset. We just lost, man. Get ready for Monday's practice.
Going to be a tough one.
Yeah. It's like, hey, coach, by the way, we're not NBA players. We're
trying to learn.
Pat over here, he was playing ice hockey like a year ago, so he probably can't get all the rebounds. He just doesn't have that skill set. I don't care. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, what culture are you coming from that, like, that's the agenda. The agenda is win where you can. And the kids pick it up right away. Like, I was a substitute teacher for like 5 months, PE teacher. And as soon as I got in there, all the kids were just, they're wilding out. They're kids. Sure. And I used to say to myself, when I go in every day, I got to realize I'm working with 12-year-old kids. What did 12-year-old kids find important? Being cool, having friends. What's their biggest fear? Not fitting in. Okay. So I don't want to isolate anybody. Don't want to. So I used to say to myself, okay, this is what I'm going to do every morning. I'm going to check in with them. How you guys doing? Hey, and then I'm going to let them know, hey, I want to know if everyone's okay. Like, I want you guys to realize, like, if we go run out in that track, and one of you's diabetic, or one of you, has an inhaler for something, and I don't ask how you all are doing and find out if there was anything, I can send you into harm's way.
Yeah.
But if I check in with you, you guys have an opportunity to let me know. So I don't have any expectations, and we can work it out together. And they're like, man, this dude's different. And we go from an easier, like when you put someone new on the team, I think the saying is storm, transform, norm. And it keeps cycling through. So like you and I, let's say we go on a picnic and we're just sitting here, it's the two of us, and we both know what we like. So we're in a norm. Every day we have that. And then a new person comes in and we don't have enough sandwiches. So then we got to go through a little bit of storm to realize it. And now we got to then kind of regulate what are the responsibilities. We got to transform a little bit. Then we go back to norm. Now there's 3 of us. All right. And then all of a sudden 2 more people show up. Now we're going to go right through it again.
Okay.
So with the kids, when we step in, it's like, how do you come into a system and not disrupt it? What if you ask, hey guys, what do you guys normally do about this? Or, hey, what are some of the activities you like? Let's bring them into a democratic situation where we figure out, hey, I know I got responsibilities, and I can tell them that. They're not going to be mad at me. Say, hey guys, as the substitute, my role is this.
Yeah.
Now they're going to look at me and go, well, that's your role. Okay. Okay, now you didn't put authority on it. You just said that's your role. Like, that's just the facts, guys. Now, what I'd like to find out is, what are some of the things you guys like to do? Whoa, this dude's different. Okay, let's put some things down here, okay? And if we're playing, we used to play like football and things like that, and there would be this competitiveness in some of the kids. That alpha male starts to come out. They'd want to be quarterback, and they'd kind of get upset if some kids didn't catch the ball. And I'd see it, and I'd be, okay, what can I do? Because I want to help everyone grow. That's my thing, right? But I can't say, I want everyone to go, hey, shut up. What's this guy talking about? So you'd say, hey, let's create 2 fields, okay, guys? This is the competitive side over here, and this side over here, it's kind of like playing football with grandma in the backyard. It's still fun, and it's not. No one's going to get into an argument.
But you're not trying to crush her.
You're not trying to tackle her. Like, my hip, So you build those 2 sides, and it's the funniest thing. Everyone's going, yeah, man, let's go over here. Let's really play some football.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it still creates the apex. The alpha male still got to find who's top of the pack. And that person's going to get real loud. They're going to sit there. They're going to take over the role. They're going to go autocratic. Man, I'm all-time QB. I know what I'm doing. Okay, yeah. And your leadership, how's it working?
Yeah.
And then slowly, those kids would trickle. 1, 2 would go over to grandma's side. Hey, can we play over here?
Because they're over the...
Yeah. And before you know it, they're all coming over. And then they're transforming that side and trying to make it competitive again. Hello, timeout. What just happened? Some of the other kids. These kids were on that field, and they came over here, and they made it not fun over here. Well, what are they doing? They're trying to be quarterback all the time. They're say, hey, guys, let's separate again. Okay, well, if you're going to come over to this island, let's make sure that we're willing to understand the culture of this island. This island's fun, and everybody likes to play a little quarterback. Everybody likes to catch the ball. It's a feel-good over here, okay? It's not about winning. If you want to win, go over there.
Where did you develop this mindset? I mean, you keep mentioning cultures. You played overseas. You've lived in a lot of different places. Is it because you've experienced so many different cultures that you're kind of, just the way you're talking about it is in the normal way that it sounds like most people think about this.
I think it's, again, as I'm going to hit that, I don't know. I don't know in the sense that, I have a lot of experience with different cultures, things like I like, things that I was like, very curious, like, why do y'all do that? And then you bring them back and you kind of like say, hey, I saw this in Poland and I thought this was really cool. And then you bring it up and some people are like, I don't know if that's for us. Well, they don't know the end game of it. They don't know like, what is that road trip going to bring us? Like, what do you mean? Like you see communities, like there's a local one here where the city council was like, hey, we're gonna build the plans to a sailing community center. And right away people got their pitchforks like, kill the monster. What? No, we're not.
Sailing like sailboats?
Yeah, sailboats. because this community has so much lake space, they said, well, let's access our lakes. Yeah. Let's get youth programs in here. Let's be able to rent this out, and people want to do weddings. No, we don't want it. No, we don't want any of that.
Why?
Who's paying for that?
Oh, okay.
Now, the reality is people don't know in 10 years from now that maybe crime goes down. It's a preventive measure to create a new culture that everybody becomes more welcoming. Like they're only stuck on the who's paying? Are you raising taxes? No, we're lowering crime and we're building more commerce because people are actually going to communicate where we don't have that anymore. People aren't going to churches. So it's like, let's create a space where I'm not buying into that crap. And it's like, well, whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
They won't give it a chance because their life experience has only seen things fail, or they want to see it from a naysayer point of view. I went overseas and I saw all these different cultures. I wasn't in charge of taxes, but I was like, man, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't start that, and I never saw the building. I didn't see the shovels go into the dirt and start that up, but I do see the end product, and I do see what the mechanism is creating, and that's really cool. Somebody pioneered that, put it to plans, put it to city council, and created that, and they trailblazed. But if you don't do that, you're not going to have anything. Maybe you'll get worse. Okay, let's sit on the money. Let's keep pouring it into concrete and making the streets better. And let's get everyone's mood to never have some sort of space where they're going to release, where they're going to relax. Like, I have pride for my community. We got the best sidewalks. Oh, really? Yeah, everybody's so excited to get out there. Like they're really getting around. Like, that's a great culture. But like, look at the culture of like Ireland's community sense is this. Maybe they celebrate, the stereotypical, they go to pubs. Yeah. But what is the pub? The pub is a central space for talking about adverse situations inside the community. Hey, did you hear what happened to Billy? Or, hey, did you see what happened to that young person? Hey, we all need to come together. Yeah. And they create an opportunity to do things. And when they do that, they're talking about the day's events and all that. The Irish culture is very strong. No one's going to come in there. Like, they're not. They open up the I don't know if you'd call it the borders or whatever, but they opened it up for like a lot of Lithuanians, Polish. A lot of people started coming in there from Latvia. And when they did, they didn't change the culture. They were still respective of theirs, but the Irish culture was so strong that they actually enjoyed it.
They adopted it. They wanted to pick up what they liked from it.
They're like, this is amazing. Like, you all actually take space to communicate what's going on, and you take action. And funny thing is it works. It creates this love of like, hey, are you a stranger? Come on in here and tell us about yourself, And they want to strengthen that. Yeah. Now, I don't know where we lose it in some places because it's going to happen.
Right.
But where I got that from too, though, is like, again, is that distinction space. I see where it's not. When I first came back, I told you that I got into training. Well, there's some more truth in the idea that I started going to a lot of different rec centers and seeing kind of the disgruntled symptoms. Kids complaining, the referee standard, all that. And I was like, man, I've seen some of the highest levels of these things, and I can see what it can be. And again, it's not a blame thing. If you don't know how to make a paper airplane, I hand you a piece of paper and you crumple it up, make a ball. I could say, okay, that's your paper airplane. Yeah, that's great. So it's like, okay, what can we do? So I take the initiative. I want to do a camp. I want to go do this, and I start to learn what they're experiencing as the leadership who's created that. Like, okay, you can see something, but do you really know the analytics and the logistics behind actually making that? Yeah. And once you do, then you're kind of getting on both ends. If I don't make something that you like, maybe I don't have the team, or maybe I don't have the business strategy or that, and that's okay. Like, we'll give you some time to learn those things. You can perfect your model, whatever, scale it, do it, whatever you want to do. But you're seeing it from both sides of things. So there's an appreciation for the effort, but there's also, some sense when I go into things is like, I'll look at it and be like, hey, what model are you building this from? Or where, what's the agenda inside of this? Or how effective are we at this thing? Or what? It's almost like taking a SWOT analysis, but people can also, it's almost like that coaching thing. They don't want you to create a SWOT analysis. I didn't ask you for a SWOT analysis. We like what's going on. Like, okay, I'm not even gonna get involved. Yeah. Like I'm in this city league this past season, basketball. And the standard of it is, it's pretty low. And it is what it is. It's one of those things where the kids are getting the experience. But remember, kids don't wake up and walk into an NBA arena playing. So they don't really understand the professionalism behind all that standard. So when they walk in, they think they're in that because it's 10% better than the little hoop that's on their closet door in their room. So they're like, man, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But all the adults are like, hey, man, is that ref drunk? You know? So it's like we start to chip away like what it's not. But if you sit there and you're kind of watching it, you're like, okay, you know, the kids are enjoying it. It's not the best. There is room for growth, but what's the agenda behind the city? Are they looking for the best sports experience, or are they just like, hey, we're going to get some jerseys and, you know, we're going to give you kind of an introduction? So the story goes that a lot of the adults were kind of disgruntled about it, and they want to build their own. Like, hey, kind of on the side, like, hey, what if we, let's meet over here, and we're going to talk about, you know, taking this over, and we're going to move to the next town. And I'm like, yeah, and what if you build the same thing? Yeah. Because why not go to the city who's already putting it on, who already has the gym, who already has the budget, and say, hey, how can we help? Yeah. How can we help? Like we want to realize what you guys are looking to do. I mean, again, the city might say, we're good. You know, maybe then it's a moment, but it's like, what if they actually say, you know, we notice this, like, what if we could volunteer more? What if we could raise some funds? What if we could do this, you know? But again, the idea is I can do it better than you. It's like, oh, okay.
Back to the ego.
Yeah, wow. Like, okay, so you have some effective team, like for marketing and for putting on events and, you know, running the whole thing. Wow, that's amazing. Like, we should have hired you guys, you know?
Yeah. But give them the chance and present it to them in that way of there to help, right?
Yeah.
And this is what you've observed, and this is what
sure, but maybe they don't take that first step because that's not.
Maybe they're afraid.
Maybe they're afraid, but maybe they've never done it before, so they kind of fear the outcome. Oh, they're closed-minded. They don't want to do that. You know, it's like, okay, did you ask? No, they're closed-minded. So what did they say?
I never
approached them. Yeah, I never actually talked to them.
Shit. You mentioned something there a couple times, and the competitive nature of children. I find myself thinking about this with young children, and the conversation comes up a lot where in youth sports, you know, everybody gets a trophy. There's no real winner and loser. Do you think that there needs to be those individuals that want to be competitive versus the ones that just want to have fun there needs to be a balance of both, in my opinion. But what's your take on the kind of early ages? It seems like they're trying to take that competitiveness away from children early on.
That's interesting. So if we don't put any governing on how people act and react and do things, like what happens? Like, is that real life? Are there a lot of lessons in that?
Yeah.
Or if we look to make a new world and it's governed and changed like that, are we really benefiting our kids? You know, so it's like, let's say I'm, 7 foot tall as a 10-year-old, and the parents are like, that's unfair. Yeah. Like, what's unfair? Like that young man is, got some genetics that created that.
He didn't choose that.
In your son or daughter's path in life, they're gonna meet that level because the world standard is reality. The town standard is just geographical to that town.
Right.
So it's like, hey, here in this town, we don't do that. You're like, oh, that's great. Well, what's the outcome of that? Like, let's look at some of the elders in this town and see what they've accomplished in their life because they were subject to that. No, they don't really experience other people really well. You're not from around here. Yeah, oh, you're right. I'm not.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. Like, what's the benefits of that? I don't like the way you're asking questions. I'm just asking, like, what are the benefits of like changing the rules or doing that? Yeah. When you look at the NBA from afar, you see over the last 2-3 decades they changed rules, and you go, why are they doing that? People are like, I don't understand that. It makes the game faster, and it makes it so that there are more opportunities for end of quarter game like shot selection. So there's
which
more
makes people watch
excited.
More,
it's more entertainment,
more
right?
Entertainment. Yeah.
So like, what's a soap opera going to actually put on the TV? Like, you watch Telemundo, like they're not sitting there talking about study hall and baking cookies. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like, you did what? Dun dun dun. Yeah. Like, that brings people back. Like, it's so absurd and sensational that's where we get a hook. That's the NBA. But if you watch European basketball, they're as far from that as they can be. It's more tactical. It's more strategic. It's 5 guys working for one good shot. Whereas, the sensationalism that they're just exuding in the NBA is what's getting to the consumers, the kids. Is, I want to wear the jersey. I got to wear the hat. I got to, I got to get
those
that.
shoes.
Yeah. So they're making that so that occurs. So let's make some heroes. Every team has an all-star. Do they really? Do they really have an all-star? There's a few, but I don't know if they're everyone. Well, we got to sell jerseys, so let's put them up on billboards, So I think when you talk about the competitive thing, I have a story that, I think it translates to this. So when I was training this one young man from a local high school, he was a little point guard, right? He was about 6'1". So he was working on finishing, right? So finishing is, getting to the basket and working on different ways to score. But, you look at it because there's a very high traffic area in a game under the basket, right? So
where all the big guys are.
Yeah. So if you want to be effective, you're looking at different ways to put scenarios in. Like, what if this person does this? And what if the defender does that? So you're going through different ways. And this young man, maybe it was an imagination thing. Maybe it was the path of least resistance. But the ball would never get very high on the backboard, right? So I could see from my experience level that a shot blocker would be able to take care of this really easy. Like, he wasn't going over anybody. So I don't know if there's a young man now, he's with the Boston Celtics. His name's Taco Fall. No. So Taco Fall is 7'6", right? So we had the blessing and experience of, he actually lived in this community for a little while. Yeah, so he came in, first day he came in, got to know him and he played a little bit. Well, he got to play with that young man that I was training. So every time this young man went in, he wanted to put that same level of getting the ball in.
Not going to work on a 7'6" guy.
Yeah, so Taco's blocking that thing, and he's creating a whole new outcome, right? My goal is to score the basket, but it's not working. I'm trying. I'm trying this. Oh, really? How's it working?
Yeah.
Well, I've been working for the last 2 years on doing like this. Okay. And what's happening today? It's not working. Okay. So maybe the approach has some, reflecting to do. Like, what was in your mind as you were going? Well, I was just trying to score it. I was okay, but there are other people out here. So we get a timeout. He comes up to me, and you see the frustration. You see the, kind of the, just what's going on. And he's like, man, I can't. I go, hey, this is going to sound funny. I said, do you know what you met today? And he's like, yeah, this really big guy. I said, no, you met reality. See, the world standard is there are 7'6" people in the world.
Yeah.
Your town standard is that what you were doing could work. But now when you actually meet the people that are on television, like, there are 7'6" guys in the NBA because he went to the NBA.
Yeah.
He's like, back then I was like, he's probably going to the NBA. So now when you're getting to compete against them, is your standard of play effective or ineffective? It's extremely ineffective. Right. I said, okay, so let's just do this. Next time that we train, we have this loaded in our understanding. He's like, that makes sense, coach. So we moved from that point forward, and next time he came out, it wasn't like every shot was going up because he had awareness. The human brain has to be aware of something. First, you don't know something, then you know that you don't know something. So then you're aware of when you're not doing it, and then you exercise doing it. So from that point on, then he started to, realize this, and the awareness kept motivating him to change what he was doing, and slowly he went on to do other things. He actually got a college scholarship and played. But that one moment is where you go back to, is like, should we take out the competitive people? To what? To what's the end goal? Is it for a great experience? I mean, if it's for a great experience, I mean, you can do that.
Yeah.
But it's not reality.
Right.
I mean, when you limit the number of people in an amusement park, so everybody gets a great experience, then the goal is met. They're going to come back.
Yeah.
And that could be driven from, just a business sense. Like, if you take out the competitive kids, or maybe you give the competitive kids their competitive space. Right. We have two options. Yeah. And then you're looking at it and go, okay, because the reality is when you ask the kid, I don't think I'm an NBA basketball player, but I'd like and they're not going to use this language, I'd like a feeder program where I could, kind of learn the experience, because I'm not capable. Yeah. But if you do put the competitive kid in, how many touches of the ball are you going to get?
Yeah.
You know, if you are the kid who's, you know, which really, again, in sports is there's more average to below average kids that want to play than there is the above average kids, you know, and when you put the focus on them, the competitive kids will still find their platform. You know, there's enough of them where they'll figure it out.
Sure.
It's just that those other kids need kind of the jump start. You know, they need the ability to gain the skill set.
That makes sense. You know, giving them the skill set, and you know, the competitive nature of things is something that you can learn as you go. Once you feel more comfortable, like once you feel more confident.
Yeah.
So I'm a guy that likes to look at both sides. I see both sides of, okay, there's these parents out here that are yelling and screaming, back to that, and then there's these, you know, kids out here that they don't want to win, and I get that side of it as well, right? So. Back to basketball, you mentioned something that was sticking in my brain there. The European versus the NBA league, right? You've won. Another reason I wanted to talk to you is because you're a champion, and I love talking to champions. So you're a multi-time European champion, right? And you played for Real Madrid.
We won the European Championship once. We've been to the finals twice, and then I won 5 other championships. So I won Greece 3 times. Won the Spanish championship and the Polish championship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I was in the finals in Russia.
Yeah. Wow. Why is it that I looked at the NBA versus European League record? Why is it that the NBA seems to be better on the win-loss column than the European leagues? Would you say? I looked up for coming to talk to you. I guess the NBA teams have played some of the European teams over the last few years, right?
Yeah.
Is that a thing? I don't know if it's like scrimmage related.
So they're how would I say? They're breaking borders down and celebrating the game.
Yes.
So what they do is it's a preseason NBA experience, and then it's a preseason for the European team. So you take let's say the 4 top teams in Europe, and then the NBA partners with them because. Again, if you see the business side of it, the mentality is this. If there's all these people over in Europe, and if I sell one Orlando Magic hat to each one of them, I'm going to make a lot of money. So why not make a lot of fans?
I see.
So, and if I can get the viewing over there, we can get the TV rights bought over there, well, then we can make a lot of sponsor dollars as well. So they're opening up their share of the market, which is we want the whole thing. So they do this all over the place. So when the NBA they meet, the NBA is a much faster game, right? And again, it's almost the acceptance of selfishness is okay. So we got people that are specifically just for scoring,
right?
Then we got people that are specifically for defense. Yeah. So we have all this specialization. Now imagine this: if I have all the money, and I can pick from all over the world, our league is going to be. But like if there's somebody in Europe and they're starting to sprout, it's like, hey. This guy can really play. He's jumping into the NBA now, so they have everybody collectively
because they have all the money.
Yeah, now there are NBA players when they're on that kind of teetering and they're not getting a lot of time. They might go over to Europe.
Yeah.
So when they play, athletically and just roster depth, it's going to side over on the NBA side. It's not to say these European teams can't. Win a game. Yeah. It's just that the NBA has just got a little bit more.
It makes sense from the speed of the game, but the financial incentive for people to come play in the NBA is probably larger than it is overseas.
Yeah. So it's, again, as people dream, even European people, they dream of what they're seeing a lot of. So when I played for Real Madrid. Yeah. That's a big club. It's like that would be like the equivalent of the Boston Celtics, right? Wow. So for a lot of people in Spain, that's what's on the television because basketball is very popular over there. But now you're seeing, the Pau Gasol and his brother Mark and all these guys came over to the NBA, and now Spanish children are like, hey, they don't want to play for Barcelona, Real Madrid. Why would they go over there? And then the curiosity starts to go. And then they turn the TV on or they get on the computer and they start to go, whoa, look at this over here. And now it's like, it's the sensationalism opens up and they're like, that looks amazing. Now all of a sudden the goal is different. Man, you can go play for Real Madrid. I want to go play for the Orlando Magic and be in the NBA because have you seen all these social media? Like, look how many people follow this guy. Look at this. And then they start to create their value, right? And they're convinced because other kids their age are doing it too. Yeah. I don't see anybody going like when you look at like football, right, or soccer. like the Premier League, all those kids that are in England, they've got a treat right there, right? So they got all these amazing players, and those the league has created a system where they understand how to make it sustainable. So now they can spend all kinds of money because they're going to get the fan base, they're going to sell the merchandise, they're going to get the sponsors, they're going to get the TV rights, all of that wonderful stuff. Like that is a machine. That, I mean, if they mess that up, it'll be crazy. So when we're watching soccer over here, we're like, okay, this is pretty good. Like we're not watching it the way they're watching it over there, right? And no one over there is watching American soccer because they're looking at it going, Jesus, these guys do not have the skill set. Of course they don't have the skill set because the guys that are over there, the real soccer heads, they want to play in England.
Right.
Like this is a great thing. It's a great, they can create the market shares and all of that, but it's nothing like that machine over there. Right. So it's almost that same reverse thing. So if Manchester United came in and started playing Orlando City soccer,
oh God.
It's like, why is the score 5-0?
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah. Okay. It's something I wanted to ask you because I didn't think of it from a financial aspect, and it makes perfect sense. But you change it to soccer, and it's the complete opposite, right? And again, it's back to where you were born and what's important to you in the community that you're in.
Yeah, even look like going into earlier in our conversation, I was talking about Irish sports.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's nobody else in the world watching that, unless they got, some Irish descent and they're, they've got that. But, to its homeland, it's amazing, and it's it's got an extreme value. So
who's your people like to get into the GOAT conversation? Being an NBA player, who's your basketball greatest of all time, or what do you think of even just that conversation?
Yeah, how would I say this? Like, go into your how would I say this? Like, I don't have one. Like, I've seen some really awesome athletic feats. Like, somebody go, wow, that was amazing, right?
Yeah.
But do I know that person's character? Do like I've been in those locker rooms, right? And some of the guys are, in that point, not to say that they're still that person today, but in that point, you're like, wow, you say some real jerky things, and when you realize that, you kind of, you have an understanding of really behind the scenes. So when people are like, oh, who's the GOAT? Who's this and the other? I go, when I watch Michael Jordan play, I'm like, wow, that guy's amazing at this game. Yeah. Like, there's a person who's done this so much over and over. Like, he dove into this, and he got his own personal trainer, and that trainer was so good at the top of his game that he was like, he didn't want that guy to work with anybody else because he was so competitive. Like, you start to see the way they're doing things, the approach. Yeah. That's where I think it's really cool, to watch someone's approach or to look back and go, wow, you were doing that? Steve Nash was a teammate, 2-time MVP, and watching his approach to things was amazing, right? He might not be anybody's GOAT for scoring or this, that, and the other, but to me it was like in depth watching how he did things and the choices he was making in his life. You're a little awestruck. Yeah. So I don't know. The question is like, I don't know. I don't get excited about the question.
I'm the same. And that's honestly why I wanted to bring it up, because a lot of people throw Michael Jordan into that conversation because of his athletic ability, his scoring ability. But to your point, if you look at Michael Jordan off the field or off the court, and this is going to sound bad, but he kind of comes across as an ass, man. Just the way he communicates to people, the way he challenges people on a regular basis. And if that got you to the money you're making and his ability to win championships and close games, stuff like that, great. But to me, I'm with you, is maybe a GOAT in the realms of basketball only, maybe to an extent, but people could argue that. But I argue, and I have this conversation with my son because it comes up, people have heroes. You mentioned heroes earlier, and a lot of times a phrase comes where you don't ever want to meet them because your perspective might change on them versus what is coming out. And Michael Jordan was one of those guys that, as I got older, as a kid, I'm like, man, he's the man. But then I'm like, I kind of maybe don't want to act that way, or I don't want to come across that way towards people.
Yeah, there's I played for this fairly large team, Panathinaikos. It was in Athens, Greece, and had a lot of success with this team. And every now and then there'll be a post that comes up about the coach that was there at the time, right? I had two coaches, the one the very first year, and then the next 2 years I had this other coach. And the way he approached leadership, I just think is disgusting. Like just fear tactics. Now we won, but I know him behind the scenes. So all the fans are like, "Oh man, you brought us so many championships." I'm like, ask any of his players if they enjoy his company. You know, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, if all things were off and we didn't have a contractual relationship and all of that thing, it was like, I'm not hanging out with you.
You wouldn't be there.
I mean, it's like, no, you know, and there's no point in trying to convince people of it. Like, I'll spend some time on this. I mean, there could be people go, "Oh, I wonder who he's talking about." Like, well, he did go on and have great success. He got to the end goal. But, you know, is that outweighing the fact that he probably, you know, hurt a lot of people's careers, or he did like his approach to it, the path that was in there is like, I don't know, like years later, I think he was having some big birthday. And one of my teammates, another American, he went over, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere near that.
Wouldn't even go to his birthday.
Yeah, I'm like, there's not a chance I'm going to that thing. Like, are you forgetting the way he used to talk to us? Like, you know, like, and the funny thing is I had a couple coaches like this, and you know, you shared, you know, the question about championships. You know, I won 6 championships, right? So awesome career. Funny thing is when those coaches like that are talking to you in the way they are during the path, and then they pick up the trophy and they're smiling at you like, "Yeah, we did it," and you're like, "Yeah, I want to hold the trophy over here, you know, because I didn't share this moment with you. You know, you didn't make me my best.
Yeah.
You know, we could have done it another way, but this is the path that worked best for you.
The way that the coach wanted.
Yeah.
He wanted.
Yeah.
You know?
And well, it's not so much that the way he wanted, it's the only way he knew. You know, think about it. Like what we talked about earlier, it's like, can you take the first 3 pages and start exercising something different? And you can only have this conversation with certain people. Like, we have to get to this conversation because there's so many concepts inside of it that when you start to talk about what's like, then we can go back and keep talking about that. So the other day there was something on Facebook, right? And there's somebody clipped like 12 coaches, college coaches it was day one. They just got hired. And the repetitive comment, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do this the right way. We're going to do this the right way. And I wrote a line that says, "This is scary," right? And one of the people that has this relationship, like this conversation, he wrote, he's like, "Man, they're all going to do it the right way." And then he had like emojis of like laughing, crying. And then somebody wrote, and I can't respond to this person. He's like, "Then what's the answer?" Question mark. I'm like, this would take a couple cups of coffee to actually get to the point to realize these people are creating their own standard without any cornerstone of a manual or, hey, like if they had said John Wooden created the pinnacle of how to approach coaching people, and that's what we've been using for years. It's an effective way from day one onto building until it actually recycles itself. So you're building it almost to get out. So the freshmen we bring in, they move on to sophomores, but then they bring back the culture to the freshmen, and then the next year they're bringing it back, and then the seniors, and then the cycle starts that we understand our culture. And when we do that, we're creating the effective way to take on a standard. And that's how we're going to build this program. So they go, "We're going to do it the right way. It's going to be right." Like, well, how do you know what's the right? Like, I wanted to put on there, it's like, hey, those guys are going to be on video, one of them, yelling, screaming, and the defense they're going to have is, well, this is the way to do it.
This is the right way.
Well, it is. It's like if I sit here and I scream at my kid to clean up, you know, before long, after a couple screaming, they're going to grab a sponge and they're going to clean up whatever I'm talking about. And then it's done. And then we go, see? And we got it done.
But what did you accomplish by screaming and obviously yelling at them in that aspect? Yeah.
And they don't know any other way. So there's no blame in it.
Right.
You know, even if you talk to them about it, they're like,
this is all I know.
Like, hey, you asked me to bake a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I made it. Okay. And then when I was teaching you how to do it, just because I yelled at you, I mean, you made the peanut butter and jelly. You know, and it's like when we start talking about right or wrong, like we talked in the beginning, kids, let's make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? You're 10-year-old Steve, I'm 10-year-old Pat. Let's go younger. I'm 7-year-old, you're 7-year-old. we're sitting there and we're so excited, and this is our moment to own. It's too much peanut butter. We're whipping the bread, and by the time we look at it, it's not, the ratio's off in our minds as adults, but the kid's eating it like, man,
I made this. It tastes awesome.
This doesn't taste like Mom's, but you made a peanut butter and jelly because that's just where they're at, and let them own it.
Yeah.
Because let them eat the crappy one. But if we sit here and we're always fixing it and this, that, and the other, you know, like, am I inadequate? I can't make it. And that's where the scary part of right comes in. You know, like when someone's, I know I'm all over the place. When someone's teaching someone how to shoot a jump shot, they're righteously telling them, hey, you're kicking your elbow. You're doing this. You're doing that. Is that helping? It's just making statements. There's no effective change in that. Like when we used to work with kids, grasp this for a second. We're watching a kid. Now, we're in reality, we're watching the kid shoot, right? Now, we could sit here and tell them what they're doing, but they're not outside their body. They're not like there, but then their visuals are looking at themselves.
Right.
So let's video them, right? So we video them from two angles. I want to take the profile, and let's say I'm going to go from the front, right? So when we capture this, we sit down, and we're going to say, hey, let's take a look at your video, right? And now we're all going to be in a moment to agree of what's happened and what's happening. So what do you see, Billy? I notice my elbow is out. Oh, okay. What else do you see? My feet are facing away. All right. Anything else? Yeah, I think I'm shooting two-handed. Okay. All right. So what if we pick 3 things? Just 3. Not 100, just 3 things. And what we'll look to do is this. Now, scoring is fun. So I don't want to take away from scoring, but what if we take a number of shots before we just start shooting it, and we're working on how to transform your shot? Like, let's take these 3. Okay, let's work on your elbow. And what else? My feet. Okay, and what else? And this. Okay, so those are the 3 things. Now we go into a facility. Let's write those things up on a wall, anywhere. So we used to have a dry erase like all over. So like a person would find their spot, elbow, this. They'd walk in. How many do you think would help for change? Like 10. So you're going to shoot 10 shots and it's going to change? I don't know. What do you think? Now they've asked me, so they're inviting me in to make some sort of opportunity to come. I said, what about like around 100? 100? Well, what if we give it a shot and we'll see how much time you have to take your shots? Because again, I want you to be able to shoot your 3s and all that too. Okay. Yeah. So they give it a go. What are the 3 things we're working on? Elbow, this and the other. Okay. Hey, Billy, do you know how to play the guitar? No. So if I give you a guitar and I ask you to play a song and you can't play it, are you going to get mad? No. Okay, so stay with me. If I ask you to shoot in this different style and you're not making them, are you going to get mad? Now they got to weigh in because really they are going to get mad because what's the goal? I just want to score. It feels good to score. It does feel good to score. Yeah. But I have to have you do a little something else too. And we have to be prepared for this. So now he starts working on these things, right? Yeah. And so I'm praising it at a time. Hey, oh man, your elbow, that was awesome. Now I've got to figure out how to make him motivated because the ball's not going in. What if I told you that if we did this for 2 or 3 weeks, what if I told you people will come in and they're going to make compliments? Well, he's never been in that experience. So I'm like, I got a magic ball. He said, what? So I said, just remember that. Yeah. So then we started doing this for the next couple of weeks. He's starting to make a change. It's transforming, right? Because he's only thinking about 3 things. So every time he's doing it, he's got memory. Then he's got the awareness of when he's not doing it. Oh, that's okay. You got the awareness.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, like first you didn't even know how you were shooting. Yeah. So we looked at the tape. Then we agreed. I didn't say it. You said it, what you're seeing. Yeah. Then we created a plan. Then we understood awareness of what we're working on. Then we understood awareness when it's not happening. And now we're going to exercise doing it. So now we got the first 3 pages, right? Yeah. All of a sudden they start going in a little bit, right? Yeah. Oh, that looks awesome. That looks awesome. Now, before long, this is the one thing that makes kids feel great. Like, it's kind of like that trophy idea. Is what if someone you didn't even know was watching and they actually were motivated to get up and tell you something? What if someone that didn't even know you were training is going to say something to you in the future? And this happens. They'll be at another gym or something. They go, hey, man, your shot's looking really good. And they go, man, I just got rewarded for all that work I've been putting in.
All that hard work, all that effort.
It's not going in all the time.
Yeah.
but they can see the difference in approach. And an approach is just like, and you think about like, hey, when I was younger, man, I used to love being around my Uncle Andy. I don't know what it was about him, but like if we were having a party, I was sitting next to him. He was a cool dude, man. He didn't make anybody feel bad. He made people feel good. He's always taking care of people. There was just something, I can't explain his approach. His approach is what comforted me. And when that approach is being recognized, I said, like, you know what? I'm approaching it differently. People are seeing I'm approaching it differently, and they're coming up and saying, hey, man, I like the way you shoot the ball. Because I've seen the people on the TV, and yours looks just like it. And I knew a couple weeks ago it didn't look like that. So now I have distinction. Something's going on. Oh, man, I work with this guy over here, and he's doing this thing. And they're like, whoa. Now, 12 weeks later, videotape him again. The exact same angles, and put them side by side, split screen. That kid will feel like he's Steph Curry. Wow. Because he's looking back at a timeline, and we don't normally get to see this. You're getting your first introduction of self-reflection, but you're looking at in the physical realm. So he's sitting there going, whoa, man, I remember when I was, what? Look at me now. Whoa. Now he's motivated to keep being disciplined to shoot the 100. Hey, coach, what if we put it up to 150? Well, your trajectory is going to be faster. What do you mean? Well, the more you do something and you exercise it, the more confident you're going to become. So you're going to actually start playing your games with this in there. And then after a while, the comments are coming. Hey, man, you have totally changed. Hey, I'm Mike's dad over here, and I come into the train and you don't know me, but I'm just want to say, man, I love the way
awesome shot.
And all of a sudden they're like, what's that feeling? Like, I don't even know that dude. He just came up, and then people are coming up to him like, hey, man, what'd that guy say to you? He said this. And they're like, what? They didn't say that to me. And then all of a sudden you're creating an approach that's being recognized because of its effectiveness. Because remember, the goal for the kid is to put the ball in the hoop.
Right.
My goal when I'm working with them is to create awareness that maybe that is what's disturbing your approach to be effective in game situations. Like you could sit here and you could shoot him from the hip and make 10 out of 10. But when we get into the game, why isn't it translating? So once we get them to that, now let's approach everything. I'm going to videotape you ball handling, right? So you're going to do this 3 little drills. We're going to go to the video. What are you doing? Man, I'm looking at the ball. Oh, man, I'm only dribbling my right. Okay. All right. Give me 3 things. Let's go back to your spot where you're shooting. Now let's put those 3 things on the wall. Put them up. When one gets to a point where it's effective, let's video the 12 weeks and say, hey, we were working on how many? 3 things. You notice the difference? Okay, is there anything else you want to work on? I want to work on, maybe it gets down to 2. Maybe the growth is so effective that it's like, wow, I really like the way I'm shooting. Like, I only see this. Okay, well, let's just work on that.
I really like your approach to change. It sounds like in growth, like we've been talking about earlier. You get them to see things for themselves, right? Have an open conversation, open dialogue, and then they put in the work, but you're making it manageable. You're not saying you got to fix these 100 things at once. You're making it 3 things or 3 pages you keep mentioning, right? Making it manageable, and then once they achieve it, then they can hopefully realize they can achieve anything through the word you keep saying, discipline, man. I think that's the key.
If you looked at the conversation when it's too long, it's how would I say? There's an infinite number of, let's say, mistakes. Okay, there's an infinite number of ways you were ineffective.
Right.
So let's say I have 10 kids. I got 5 kids in red jerseys, 5 kids in blue. Hey guys, we're going to work on the concept of defending the basket, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to break this down into 3-minute playing sessions, okay? Why 3 minutes? Because at the end of 3 minutes, pretty much everybody remembers from the beginning, the middle, and the end. If I go 10 minutes, I'm as a coach, I'm going to go, man, they got 100 things wrong in there, right? Wrong. Here's me saying wrong, right? They have 100 things they did ineffectively. So let's go back. 3 minutes, poop. Okay, let's stop. Okay, hey guys, how did we do at defending the basket? Coach, whoa. What was the score? It was this. So what was the keys to that? All we're doing is exploring. Any answer is okay. Any answer can or can't, describe it. But I'm like, what do you mean by that? Oh, okay. So Mike, what were the keys to what you were doing? Okay. Or you can give examples like, how is it that Bill was able to guard Sally? And they go, oh, well, he was moving differently. Okay. So what was he doing? He had his knees bent. Okay. What about Tom? Like, how would you do? I didn't really. I don't know. Okay. Well, would you mind if we ask somebody how your stance was? Oh, sure. How was he? He was standing straight up, man. He didn't even bend his knees. Hey, Tim, are you allergic to bending? But when he gets to the point where he's like realizing, it's like, let's give this a shot. For this next 3 minutes, let's just work on getting down. And let's just call this, what's down in hunts, kind of like a mountain lion. Okay, cool. When I say mountain lion,
back to the code.
It's a code that we're just saying we're getting down, right? Because let's just go over a story. There's 2 mountain lions, right? There's one that hunts like this, and then there's one that hunts like this. The one that hunts like this, he can eat anything he wants. The one that hunts like this, if it ain't dead, he ain't eating. They're like, oh, okay. So let's go mountain lion. Let's just see what happens. Boop, 3 minutes. Anything else, ball goes in, dribble off foot, I don't care. We're just working on a concept. Because one coded word then going, hey guys, does anybody realize the score from the first 3 minutes? Yeah. In that 3 minutes, the score was 12-10. In this one, it was 3-2. Okay. Does it have anything to do? I think so. Hey, Tim, really good job. Remember, you were standing straight up as everyone shared, right? Like, yeah, he was. Somebody say, what did you do? Tim, man, that was awesome. Like, you were stopping your guy, and that put so much less pressure on us. Now he's going, man, when I do this approach, I get praise.
Yeah. Helps the team.
Boom. But again, there is a respectful part of it. I mean, this is no like kaboom factor. It's like it's that slow process of praise and finding out the awareness side of things so that you're realizing how do humans start to engage something. And it's not, instant. The screaming coach, like we talked about in the beginning, is not allowing for awareness. They're just going into override of autocratic. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do, and you do it when I do it. And if you do, we're going to win. It's like, okay, well, if I'm sitting here on the phone and I'm in front of a ticking time bomb, and I'm like, and someone's like, clip the blue wire down. Okay, now turn the dial 2 clicks. Okay, and then hit the button. Okay, you're good. I don't hang up the phone and go, hey, I know how to deactivate bombs. I'm actually going to make this a profession. I know how to do it. No. Someone who had the education was on the phone and they
told me.
The next bomb might have different colored wires, butthead. Like, don't even think it. So,
yeah. With your time with all these kids, it probably comes up where, like you said, there's some kids that they want to be in the NBA or they want to be a professional athlete. And my son's 8. He's really good at football. He stands out, and football kind of scares me a little bit. You okay? You got to go?
No, my daughter was moving. Yeah.
Yeah. But I tell him that your chances of becoming a professional athlete, rare, without work, effort, and time and understanding of some of the things you're talking about. But do you have kids that when they come in, they want to be the NBA? Is that something that's openly communicated from the beginning? Because it's not the path for everyone aren't going to be as successful as someone like yourself.
Well, okay. So there's a reality that people don't get upset by. So like when you go to the doctor, we talked about this before, there's standards of measure. Right. Your blood pressure, your height, your weight. Yep. No one's sitting to their doctor like, what the
what are you talking about?
I'm just giving you the facts.
Right.
If I give the facts, it's not with a heart to tell them this is impossible. It's like this is what's happening. Okay, this is currently okay. The kid doesn't really compute all of it. Like, oh, that would mean okay, but I think it's a great point to visit with someone to find out what their goal is to achieve. And let's create it just like a business. Let's create milestones. Even if that's with the 100 shots a week. We're going to take 100 form shots and then we'll take the other shots. We're going to do dribbling and we're going to put a plan together. Because first, if you've got no plan, it's all luck. If you partner with somebody and build a plan, at least they're in a space to say, I'm doing things effectively to the goal. Now, at some point inside that, they can kind of weigh in or gauge how they're going up against other competition. And that doesn't feel good. And a feel-good adverse situation can always get into a conversation to say, hey, we played that tournament and that one kid, he's my age, he's younger than me, and everybody was, okay, so what do you think he's doing? And now we can weigh in, like, are you getting to the path you want? Because I want to be honest about the numbers, and the numbers aren't to make anybody feel bad. They're just the numbers, right?
It's the facts.
So what do we do about this? I do have some extra time on Saturdays. And okay, well, I mean, when you talk to kids in a way in which they can weigh in the reality of it, it's a great conversation. Well,
Sure.
do you think that'll do it? Well, hey, I just found out that the kid that got drafted from Florida State University, when he was a senior, he averaged 32, 8, and 7. Okay? So right now as a freshman, where are you at? I'm on the JV team, and I got 12, 4, and 8. Okay. All right. So your sophomore year, we got to get this. We got to get this. We got to get this. Or what do you think? And they're filling it in. I don't have to tell them it's not going to happen. I just have to be there to support them and saying, let's ask thought-provoking questions that create a reality. The vision is inspiring, but I got to extend my phone.
Oh, you're good. Whatever you need. I like what you said about seeing what the actual goal is. Is the goal you want to be a professional? I think for some, and I don't know if you catch this too, where maybe it's they want to make a lot of money. It's they want to get out of the situation that they're in or that they came from. And you see that a lot in professional athletes where they came through this adversity. Maybe it's to make money or fame or whatever the case may be, but to help get them out of that situation. But then sometimes they can't hold on to that. But the chase of money becomes thrown around, and I don't know if that's the right way to go about it, is my opinion.
Well, I think that, again, is they've got to own that experience. Like an agenda is much better for everybody when it's spoken, whatever the agenda is. I mean, I used to go into City Hall and go up to the council and be like, hey, man, we need to help kids. And they'd be like, good luck with that. And I'd be like, what the, what's going on here? And then it took me a little while to go, you know what? Their agenda is to create better property value, to spruce up the town, to, put sidewalks into the, and it's funny is in a physical sense, they're going to get people safely from A to B. We're going to build sidewalks, we're going to build that sidewalk there because people are going to get safely from there. But you're not helping people in life get from A to B because that's not your responsibility. That doesn't even make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
It's like, so if the agenda was known right away, I won't, okay, cool. Now if you sit there and you go, okay, you want to make more money, okay? All right, well, let's explore those options. I mean, how do you want to do it? Well, I was thinking about this. Okay. All right, well, is it legal? Is it illegal? Is it this? Is it that? Because if we can have that conversation, I can partner because I can share. Is my mission statement going to help you to do that? Because I can say, I'm not the person for you. I know somebody. Yeah. Hey, you know what? There's a guy up at the college who does it. Maybe we can help, get that. Yeah. But, again, is the agenda or the goal in the beginning is big. Yeah. I years ago, and I think, I don't know when people realize this, is like, I want to make more money. Okay. So you haven't taken on the experience, and if people are listening, maybe they haven't taken this experience. Getting more money is not going to make you, alleviate all your problems. Yeah, you could change.
Might make it worse.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, you add one variable to something, it could make it. It could not do anything, or it could make it worse. I mean, like some people will be like, man, I hate this school. I'm transferring. How do you know the next school is any better? Yeah. Because your process was when you went into this school or was coming to the school, you thought this was going to change everything. Now, I'm going to guess that you probably haven't researched this one when you came in, and the next one you're not going to research either, but your mind is hopeful because your process is still the same.
But you're blaming them.
Yeah, but you're blaming them. You're going to walk back into that one too. So
the grass isn't always greener on the other side, as they say. But for me, the pursuit of money became the problem. Yeah. It took me away from everything else I should have been trying to accomplish from a growth and family aspect, right? So I find myself more and more hating money. I don't like to use the word hate, but just the idea of, what people think about it. And I'll speak for myself, the idea I had about it. I got to have this big house. I got to have these nice cars. But I think that's what's portrayed in some cases through professional athletes, which is why kids grow up wanting that. Yeah.
Well, I think an important question that people don't share is like, what is it you don't want? And it's such an interesting conversation. I don't want to look back in 10 years and have lost time with my kids.
Bingo.
Okay. I don't want to do this. Like a lot of kids, when you say, hey, the typical is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I don't know. What is it you don't want to be? Man, I don't want to be in front of people talking.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like, let's learn about you in another way. What are the things that make you happy? Oh, I like taking care of people. Oh, cool. Now, I don't have to label what that position is, but, with some experience, you can kind of see where that person's kind of leaning towards later on in life, but we don't have to have that conversation now. So
you got plenty of time. I tell my son that all the time. You got plenty of time.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of what we were doing with the kids, because I don't even do this anymore, but when we were doing this with kids, is we learned that the biggest fear kids have is not fitting in, right? So when you start to look at the emotions of things, there has to be a quitting point. When do emotions arise? So there was these 3 things that we could gauge right away. When you're not looking good, when you're not feeling good, and you're not feeling safe. So we would talk to the kids and we would say, hey, here's these 3 types of people, okay? And one of them's a looking good, one of them's a feeling safe, and one of them's a feeling good, right? What do you think that looks like? Or what do you think that those, give me an example of that. And they go, a looking good is always caring about their shoes and their this, and they're always fixing their hair. Okay. Well, what's a feeling safe? That person, they don't go into a crowd. They probably don't joke around a lot with the big people. They probably look at their watches all the time, and they probably they already know the weather if they have an umbrella. What about a feeling good? Oh, that person, if they got a hangnail, the day is over. They probably, if they're playing, they got a grumbly diarrhea stomach, they're like, I'm done. So which one are you? And when you ask them that, they start to look and they go, wow, I never, Think about the last time you got upset. Because now we're going to get to the core of why you got upset. Were you not looking good in front of people? Were you caring about the way you looked? That was no foul, ref. Man, that was no foul. Because my parents are here, my girlfriend's in the crowd. I don't want to look like I'm just a foul guy. That makes me look bad. Or the feel-good person, last time I got upset was I was hungry, and we weren't making plans for dinner, and I was hungry, and I just started to yell at people. Or the feeling safe person is yeah, I'm a little bit claustrophobic, and the elevator got a little full, so I started to lash out. Now, when they figure these things out, now they can start to look at it, and they can sit there and go, why am I doing that? When kids are playing basketball, the kids that are feeling safe, for some reason, they always find themselves in the corner or way away from the ball. What's going to happen? I mean, are you going to come in here and you're going to break your arm? I don't know. We'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Let's try an agreement. From now on, when you're on offense, you are going to put your feet in the paint twice. So in and out. And when they do it, they've experienced the first 2 pages. They've done something different. Actually, they scored twice. So something good came from something they were fearing. But when they actually realize it and they do it enough, now the confidence is, I'm not going to get hurt. What am I making up? So you're getting them to take steps. The person who's a feel-good could be like, I don't feel good. I said, well, what's the benefits of you telling me how bad you feel for the team? What? What's the benefits of you complaining about how you feel for the rest of us? No one's ever asked me that question, but I don't think there's any benefits. Well, the benefit is, it's not a trick question, is you get to tell me what you feel. It's all about you. So what if you realize that, hey, it doesn't feel good to run up and down the floor, but if you just do it, maybe things will happen. So let's do this. What would you say would be an appropriate speed on a scale of 1 to 10 running back on defense? 10, your tongue's hanging out of your mouth and you're running, you're going to get tired. I don't know, about a 6 or a 7. Okay, let's make an agreement. From now on, you're going to run it at 6 or a 7. Okay, let's just give it a shot. They put that into effect. You remind them of it with the code 7, and they're running. Now, all of a sudden, they're scoring more. They're getting more rebounds. So whatever they were listening to before, that little voice that was telling them to quit, they're not quitting. But when they don't, they get the discipline of going, you know what? What's going to happen if you go at an 8? I didn't even tell them to go faster. I said, what if? Now they go to an 8, and I don't even know what an 8 looks like. They're the author. So they start running at an 8, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting more points and more. Cool. You're getting more of what you wanted because you're actually detaching from what was slowing you down. The looking good kid, the conversation is So do me a favor, like let's find the shoes that you don't care about. Let's put those on. Because if you're going into the lane and you're worried about someone stepping on your shoes, maybe those aren't the shoes you need to be wearing. You know? But those little things are just different the first 3 pages that get them thinking differently to getting different outcomes. And those different outcomes are actually getting them closer to who they want to be, but they didn't realize those attachments were slowing them down.
Again, you can insert what you just said and take it to basketball or to take it to any side of life, right?
Well, that's why, not to interrupt, but that's why when we were working on this, the platform, and for the people listening, you know, when we first started talking, we didn't want to go too far into any conversation because it would you know, I guess take away from the interview. So
takes away from the real reaction to it. It's kind of why I say that in the beginning.
So the initial conversation when we were talking about sports is why I don't appreciate sports in a way for the sports side of it. I appreciate it for what it's doing as far as like people and their transformation and their experience. So we could have done this whole program, with the kids, not through basketball. We could have done it through rock climbing, through fishing, through playing volleyball, through taking care of a kennel full of puppies. People are people, whether they are on a basketball court, on a camping trip, in a road trip, in a school. They're just executing their choice. And when they're executing their choice, now you have content for a conversation. And if they are willing to be able to look inside and talk about it, you have a great program.
That makes perfect sense. And again, whether it's rock climbing or basketball or whatever the case may be, there's this inherent mental health benefit, I think, of competitive sports and learning the things that you're talking about. But it's interesting because you mentioned this being in the locker room and some professional athletes talking about the negative side of mental health. I had an author on recently. He's been on twice. He has a master's in mental health. He's accredited with discovering athletes' depression. Right, it's an actual term that this guy got accredited with. He did all the research behind it. But it's interesting hearing you talk about that because there is this inherent positive, but there is also this growing negative. Well, what do you think that is? Is it because there's a ceiling to athletics? Whether you don't make it on the high school varsity or don't make it to NCAA or don't make it to pro or you age out, right? Eventually there's a ceiling. Why do you think there's so much depression associated or mental health with this?
Leadership. So we're going to sit here on a picnic and I'm just going to keep throwing the sandwiches at you and I'm going to put you in a headlock and you're going to be like, man, we never got to eat the sandwiches. What kind of picnic is this? I mean, not at that extent, but it's like how we're doing things and how they're introduced. It's like, are we going to drink from a fire hose or are we going to sit here with drips in a cup? So this was shared with me a number of years ago and I couldn't believe it. There is no governing body of youth sports in the United States. So there are small secular, like siloed, like basketball, but there's no governing body. Now, it's all over the world, Ireland, England, Australia. They will actually have a governing body of sports. So there's this thing called LTAD. It's an acronym for long-term athlete development. And this actually goes into a study of when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, chronological order, all the way up to 18 plus. There's specific things you introduce inside of healthy living in sports. When we're kids, we're intended to have a feeder program that gets a lifestyle. So it's fun. It's about, movements. It's about being healthy. It's about cardio. It's about like there's a number of things. And then the next step in it, it's like an introduction of another thing. And it's a water drip. What we have now is a bunch of hacks. See, what we have is, hey, Uncle Bob over here, he's going to train kids and coach kids, and he has no clue about how humans learn. So he's going to take his process, and he's going to tell you how to do it, right? And he's actually creating a hiccup in the system that could actually be effective. So we're such a large nation that if we don't have it, think about all the hacks that are out there, all the accidents, all the screaming, all the no looking good moments, no feeling good moments, no feeling safe moments, and all those kids not being given the water drop, right? So if they don't, there is no cycle for the mechanism, right? So if you're not building it to get out, what are you building?
Yeah.
You're building, some of you are saying, okay, so let's look at the other end of it and see, what are we building? Yeah. Okay, so now you get parents that are screaming at them. And like when we used to do our program, the first thing we would do is tell our parents, we're going to tell you what we're not, and we're going to talk about what we're doing. And they'll be like, okay, wow, I love the sound of this. Yeah. Okay, now remember, just like the kids, the human nature is the goal is to score the goal. Yeah. I want my kid to be this, and this. Okay, well, I'm going to warn you, our approach is goofy. I can communicate to you, you're going to make sense, but when you actually see it, you're like, why aren't you just telling the kids to go pick up all the balls and put them in the rack? Yeah. Like this is so silly. Like, because I don't want to do that every day. Yeah. But if I said to kids, how would we show respect for the facility? I'm going to let them start to answer. Okay, so how can we do that? And then we're going to create awareness. And when they don't do it, they're going to be aware. And then we're going to create a culture of them doing it. And then when they go to the next year, the new kids will come in, and then they will be actually to communicate to them, and we'll exercise how to do it without telling them. Because they're going to go back to their process of autocratically telling the new kid, hey, we don't do that here. Hey, Mikey, remember when you first came in? Yeah. Did you know that we... No. Okay. Well, I mean, I know it's easy to tell them, but why do we do that? Okay. Let them exercise leadership. And when they do it, they step up. And I don't have to keep saying it because I want to create disciples. And if we create disciples, like, then we can keep moving. But if I have to keep going back down here to tell them to pick up the balls, I'm like, I can only imagine what your household looks like. So parents are coming in there like going, man, I'm like, hey, if you give me 12 weeks, you won't even believe. So at the end of 12 weeks, when we have the last session of all of these different things that have done this approach, and as goofy as it is, parents are crying because the outcome and the exceeded expectations is not because of their approach. It is because of their hero approach to partnering with us. Like, just let us take the wheel for 12 weeks. And when they sit there, they go, hey, there's so much stuff changing in my child's life. Like, we're starting to get phone calls like that are of positive praise from his teacher. He's not hitting his little brother anymore. He's cleaning up his room. And this is all done. Like, I don't want anybody going, man, just be talking. No, there was so many exercises that we were doing inside of this through a workbook that create the ability to be self-aware of looking at your approach. Like, you're either going to create the chaos in your life, or you're going to be able to actually do things that you're going to see the change and look back and go, man, it was less chaotic. So the parents would come to us like, can you do this for parents? Can you do a parent?
I was just going to say that. How often do you find yourself coaching not only the kids, but you're essentially coaching the parents to a degree as well?
You can, when they have that realization.
When they want it.
Yeah, when they come in and they're at their most vulnerable and crying, then you're going to go, hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm a bit of a jerk. Like, hey, I've been there, man. Like, no judgment. I've been there. Yeah. It's easier just to tell them. What's difficult is exercising patience and partnering with somebody to figure out different ways to do it. And when you do, we're just going to do 3 pages at a time. Yeah. We're just going to put these little 3 pages in, and then it's like the video. Like the formula for helping that kid with the thing is the exact same conversation. So what's going on at the house? So what do you want to work on? I want to have a better relationship. Okay. So what do you do when they're punished? What do you do? Okay. So let's just work on these 3 things. And your son or daughter would be like, Are you okay, Dad? Like, what's happening? I'm like, I want to have a better relationship with you, and I want to do some different things. So I'm going to talk kind of goofy for a while, but what I want is I'm going to approach things differently. So I want to thank you, son, for the patience you're going to have, because Dad's going to talk a little bit weird for a while, and all of a sudden they're like, man, I like this new style. Yeah. So the going back to what was the question that you were asking me before?
About athletes' depression.
Athletes' depression is going back then to, we have created that the agenda is a hidden agenda. So parents are just wanting to get a scholarship. They're trying to go pro. They've communicated that to the kids. They sabotage the coach's huddle. The coach is getting sabotaged because the coach is ill-equipped to actually share with the parents what the program is going to be, because they can't even speak it. We're going to do it right. What the heck does that mean? So everything we see from the college coaches is like, well, I see the coach screaming at his people, so when I get to it, like sports, youth sports is the only space that you can see adults yelling at kids and we think it's acceptable. Like there's a teacher behind us in those rooms, and they're not screaming at kids to read.
Or if they were, we wouldn't be happy about it, right?
If they were, they're going to be in a different position. Maybe they can get into coaching. You'd be a really good coach. But so if we look at the end results, we have to look then at what's happening. It's a doctor's SWOT analysis, right? Yeah. Okay, let's take all the vitals. What's going on? Okay, so where are we at? So what's the goal? So you choose who you partner with. Like here's a goofy thought, right? So let's say your child tries out for the soccer team, right? And people don't realize that a tryout is two ways. And if you don't realize who the coaching staff is and their character, you're stepping into something with an expectation. Well, my daughter joined this, and I don't understand it. Well, we're not in a space to actually question the coach because you're not allowed to. Because the coach's ego they're ill-equipped to answer these questions like I'm talking about. So they're not saying, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to start off with phase one. We're going to create an agreement with all the kids, and we're going to look to do that. Now, we understand the integrity is going to slip, but what we're going to do is try to create a culture of this. And the parents are going, wow, this is really well put together. Well, of course it is, because what do you want me to do? Sit here and yell at your kid and tell you this is the right way? We've created that everything that's happening is okay because, hey, thank you for being a volunteer. You volunteer. You're volunteer. Like I meet your son for the first time. The first time we meet, we shake hands. Here's a crazy question. When is it okay for me to start yelling at him?
Never.
Well, in our society, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, he works better getting yelled at. Oh, he does? Does he really? He works better as a puppet. Don't we all? You know, put the old cattle prod on me because I'll clean the house and just keep zapping me. Like, I'm going to be productive, but it's going to affect me emotionally. So if we don't look at these tryouts, when parents are getting upset, like 3 games into the season, man, this damn coach he's an idiot. It's like, well, you stepped into that contract.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't research it. And again, maybe you're not allowed to ask that question, but give it a go. Just ask them.
Or people don't want to take the effort that it would be to maybe sit down and have a conversation with the coach before it even starts, So there's a little bit of effort there as well.
A lot of that, too, is guarded through coaches. So coaches who can't articulate really their formula for doing it, it's not formulaic, they'll create a force field around them. Hey, there's a 24-hour rule here. After any game, don't approach me until 24 hours afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah, because I won't have the answer of why I didn't play your son. It's the perfect. Hey, there's a 3-day policy here. If you've got anything you want to bring up to me, tell me 3 days after the season.
3 days after the season.
but they, because it's an awkward situation. Right. Like what we're talking about is we're breaking down the depths of how things work with effectiveness and ineffectiveness. We're getting away from right and wrong. We're getting away from the author being the authority. So now what we're getting to is like, okay, now let's ask the typical coach. Hey, how do you create effective measure and change in your team? Man, what are you talking about? What, man, hold my beer. I'm going to punch this guy in the mouth.
So he was drunk.
So like, that's a goofy question. Who could answer that? Like I had a coach one time that he'd call me up to ask me something about my son. He's like, hey, I'm no psychologist. And I'm like, okay. But do you read any psychology books? Because a lot of what you're doing inside of that is motivation, inspiring. And these are globules. Like, you're dealing with emotionally filled people that have attachments. So when you take on the responsibility, it's you as an authority have to realize at what age level are you coaching and what's the typical, emotional maturity and all that with them, so you're not passing judgment. You're taking on the position. So you have to say to yourself, when I walk through that gym door every day, I got to say to myself, hey, I'm 47, they're 16. And at 16, they don't know this, that, and the other. So how do I equip myself so I can have patience and emotional management? And if you can't, don't do it.
Do you think that's where that governing body then would come in to be able to make sure that that is the type of coaching that our children are getting?
Sure. There's the promise of a leadership, like a governing body, is going to help, but it's also going to, you're still going to be able to weed all of it all out because because remember, we are emotional globules. Like the ego's still going to go, I'll go through all of that, man, this silliness, look at all this stuff, man. Long-term athlete development. Who came up with it? Some scientist? He never shot a ball. All I got to do is tell these kids this, that, and the other. I know the game. It's like, we're not saying you don't know the game. We're just sharing that what if there was a more effective way to approach this. So the end result was to create something that was polished, edited, And it was something that you'd say, this is what our culture produces. And we're not. We're not. But no one's got the opportunity to actually stop and look at it and say, well, how do we change that?
Right.
And that's where, I talked about it earlier with the City League thing, right? So this group of parents is like, hey, well, let's go start something new, It's like, okay, you can, in hopes that, you can do it. But then if you go and talk to the existing City League, can you make change? Do they want it? The agenda? So a lot of what our conversations and topics, it's woven into the bigger picture, because it's just like the awareness with the shooter. The kid's shooting and he takes the video. Well, now if we SWOT analyze the City League and we'll say, hey, let's look at this league. Let's look at the disgruntled, testimonials. Well, what 3 things do you guys want to work on? And maybe they don't want to work on anything. So it's like with those coaches, is it the right time? What do they need? What do they need to happen in a reality to say, hey, we need to change this? Look at our society today. Policing and all this stuff. It's like, and everyone's like, hey, we need to redo all this. It's like, hey man, it's so big. We all know that we all move out of fear. We make a lot of choices out of fear. We all know that we all have programming. We all know that we have an inability to do what's difficult. So we want to take the path of least resistance. We all know we become a product of our own environment, but we also know that we become so hardwired, it's very difficult to reset.
Yeah.
How do you reset mindset where it's like click, and you go, whoa, man, look how beautiful it is out here today. I'm so down because, man, I'm doing this job over here and I got to do this. And, man, I'm always in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Like, well, is that job you or you? Like, are you labeling yourself by the position? Are you getting caught up? What is it you want to do in life? What is it you don't want to do in life? And those types of questions in mental health ground you into that. And sometimes you can get caught up in something and you're almost in hypnosis, and everyone can see it around you, like, man, that dude's working way too hard, but he's always in a bad mood. Like, and then I don't want to hear it. I always go back to the coaching side of things. Those guys can't see the chaos they're creating. They don't realize if this one coach in particular that I know of, if he could record his post-game comments that he says to the kids,
his own comments,
I think he'd be shocked. Say, hey, we're going to put a bunch of grandmothers out playing, and then let's play that, and you let them, and let your grandmother be in there too, and then play that for them. You all, I don't even know you all. Like, I'm embarrassed at the fact that you guys. It's like, whoa, hey, are you getting a little too caught up, man? Yeah. Like, the reality is these are 16-year-old kids, and none of them's going to get a D1 scholarship, and they didn't agree to go through your authority like that,
to be spoken to in that way. They didn't agree to that.
And again, as it goes back to that, you shake someone's hand, and when can I start yelling at your kid?
Right. That's an interesting question.
It's goofy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's okay.
But that's what's happening. That is what's happening.
It's like, imagine if you went up to the coach, you're like, hey coach, so I'm kind of thinking to myself, you met my kid 2 weeks ago, right? And then today I just saw you just like cussing him out. Yeah. And I'm just trying to figure out like I've known I know some of my good friends for like 20 years, and I've never done that to me. So, hey, what's your secret sauce? Like, when did you get to that confidence point where you could just yell at the kid? And they're like, hey, we have a 24-hour rule. You can't talk to me.
You're breaking the 24-hour rule.
Yeah. And then they go home, and they're like, oh, my gosh, how am I going to answer this?
Yeah.
Like, because there's something in you that you don't want to talk about, and we're never going to get there, and you're going to do it again next year and next year and next year and next year.
Back to that fear of kind of people looking at themselves in the mirror and figuring out why they're even the ones yelling and screaming and cussing and acting that way.
It's the right way.
It took me, and you mentioned this, and I've said this recently, it took me realizing who I'm not to even come close to trying to figure out who I actually am, right? And I think that's a big part of life, is looking at why you are the way you are first. You're speaking my language on the whys behind things, right? But then figuring out who you don't want to be, and I think eventually you'll find out who you are.
That's a great point too, because when you create a team around yourself, like let's say you're going to start something. Hey man, I'm going to go on this road trip, right? And I'm not the best administration person, but my friend Charlie is. Hey, Charlie, hey. So you start to build this team, because it's not to say we're inadequate. We have strengths. And if we're open, we know we have weaknesses, right? And when we can create a team around that, it's unstoppable, because they complement each other. They're like, man, you want me to come? That's awesome, man, because I was just thinking about you because you're really good at this. And they're like, cool. And when a team works like that, like somebody told me one time, like, hey, would you want to be the smartest person in the room or like the most ignorant person in the room? And first of all, ignorance is not an insult.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know the Chinese language.
Yeah.
You dummy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. I don't have any necessity for it right now. And I'm not going to. But if I'm ignorant to marketing strategies in 2021 or this and the other, and I partner with someone that is, I'm ignorant, they're smarter in it. I want to be the most ignorant person in the room in that space. And to me, it's like, when you look at professional basketball, right? Greg Popovich for the Spurs is one of my favorite coaches. Greg Popovich calls a timeout, right? Now, Greg Popovich is, how would I say, he's ignorant to the actual activity, the physical activity that's going on the court. He can see it visually, but he doesn't know it, right? And then he's also not at a heightened space of being the best point guard or shooting guard or this. So Tim Duncan and all these guys, Ginobili and all these guys, when they come to him, you're looking at a leader who's, okay, guys, what's going on? And he's asking them, right? Or he breaks up. He's one of the first person I noticed that like you can have your internal thoughts of what you think is important, but when you break into a group that they can kind of fix the puzzle, he goes in with his assistants. He's like, all right, guys, what do you think? Yeah. And they'll take that first 15, 30 seconds. The assistant coach would be like, hey, I noticed Timmy's limping on his this and the other. Whatever. Oh, gee, okay, I didn't even notice that. But it's a collective, right? Yeah. And then he goes back into the huddle, and then he brings up the top 3 points. And you're going, dude, who formulated that?
And I bet you all those guys would go to his birthday party given the opportunity, right? When it comes up. But I learned that the largest team I ever had, sales team, was 1,000 people, right? So if you think about managing that at scale, I had to implement some of these things you're talking about, because me saying do this or this is how I do it, this is how it made me successful, I learned quickly that didn't work. Yeah. It was the getting everybody involved, seeing what their strengths are, letting them see what their strengths are, and say, okay, how can we do this collectively as a unit, and what is it that you actually think? Not just because I should ask you what you want to think, because I really care what it is that you think, because you're the one that's been here.
And you've also experienced success in the democratic process, right? And one of the things is when you have confidence it works, you'll do it over and over again. It's like when we're kids and we go to like pour milk. I mean, it's all over the TV counter, right? But we're probably gonna get spanked. Like,
get a paper towel.
What are you doing? Now we're so good at doing it. Like there's that 4th or 5th level of learning is that when you've done it so much, you're not even actively knowing you're doing it. So you're on the phone, you're hitting the microwave with a pizza slice, you're pouring the milk behind you, and you've done it so much that you don't even have to think about it anymore. Right. And then someone goes, "How'd you just do that?" You go, "How did I do what?" So somebody in that crowd goes, how did Steve just delegate all of that? How did he get that done? Yeah. Well, you exercise it. And the first time you do it, like it's almost like, hey, I'm giving you my responsibility. My responsibility really is, the end goal is we have to create this to get done. But if we do it in a fashion that we're all sharing in it, we all win. We're all in the photos afterwards going, we did this, right? So collectively, we did this. And if people don't want to show up, I wasn't a part of it. Oh, okay. So then there may be some research. But if everyone's sitting there and they're smiling, that's a win for all. Yeah. Like in nonprofit organizations, when they got to go out to the community and they go to Bob's Barbershop and they go over to Mike's Plumbing and then they go to the bank and everyone's putting in funds or time, talent, treasure, they'll actually come back and they go, hey, guess what? Those 12 kids, they all just graduated with honors. Oh. And now they go, oh my gosh, hey, we want you guys to be in the photo. All the kids are like, what? And everyone's sitting there like pointing at the kids. No one's sitting there pointing at themselves. They're all pointing at the kids like, these kids just did it. Yeah. And the thing is like, no, the photo captured everyone's collective space of we all partnered on this with some sense of commitment, and this happened. And this is what can happen. And how can we do it tenfold? Yeah. And like that to me is always exciting, like to get people into those conversations. Yeah.
It seems like the better way to get anything, if you're trying to get set goal, right? Yeah. That's the better way to go about it, especially if there's more than one person involved. Oh, yeah. It's the much better approach, in my opinion.
Well, I think we're built to do this, we're always, people say like we're looking to survive, but it's the people who are reflecting or in a culture of reflecting that are surviving. Like it's like you're not one bad break away from being on the street, you know, and if you are, maybe because you're not reflective or not in a relationship to reflect enough to
of how you even got
so
to that
many
point.
steps away. Like because when you're right at the edge, it's like, how did I get to the edge? Well, there was nobody around to actually question it, or there wasn't any support system. And people are on the edge, but people are always going, well, man, you made that happen. I'm ignorant in the sense of leadership. Remember, ignorance is innocence. Yeah. It's just, well, when do we actually teach this? Now, the person I partnered with, now this is goofy. This is way off on another tangent. The person I partnered with that actually started teaching me this, I went through this, remember, to understand how was I going to actually be better in my business, right? And then I approached him and I said, hey, what if we did this with kids? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, we had the platform of basketball, so we created all these curriculums. And so then we started to do this. And I recognized this person had so much skill, obviously, and they worked in the industry of helping people, top leaders in industry. Like, I don't care if it's politics or, you know, in any type of goods and services, owners of businesses. So he would create metric change. Because once you start to change this, you start thinking about effectively and ineffectively doing things, well, it's going to start having an effect on numbers. And if you can realize what you want to change and you're focusing on 3 things, it'll happen. And then you formulate that into all these other areas. Now, to work with him was a lot of money. Now, this is what drives me nuts. Why isn't this knowledge free? I was, again, as I made this decision, so I take ownership. When we were running this nonprofit, this program that we ran for kids was $1,200. It was 3 months long. Now, on my end, I was up at night. I was talking with the parents. I'm doing all the enrollment. I'm going around talking to the coaches. So I'm discipling disciples. I'm taking care of this. I was working my tail off. But there was only so many kids that could actually afford it, right? So there's only like, let's say 5% that were coming in paying. We were tipped over to the idea that 90-some% of the kids were on scholarship. So for 10 years, I never made a dime on this. When I retired, I didn't make any money. I was actually writing the checks to make this work. And so I was funding my own nonprofit to help. And the person that was bringing me through this was, oh, you know, it's going to turn. It's like going into a steak restaurant and you're coming out with 3 steaks, a full bag of groceries. It exceeds expectations. Somebody's like, this is amazing. We just can't afford it. So I'm like, oh, okay. 10 years. 10 years, I said, you know what? Okay, we got to close. My financial advisor's like, hey, I know you have a love for this, but this is not working.
Well, if you're the one footing the bill to keep it running,
So I'm going around, and then I started to realize, like, people want to help, but they can't help others until their survival is you're okay. Like I drive a Corvette, and I have this and I have that, but I'm not making ends meet. Like, okay, well, we've all been there, you know, like, okay, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you about your life and what you're choosing to put all your finances in, but then don't come over to me complaining about the community or the world is like this because you're a consumer at your own luxury and you're not really giving back and investing. So we can make a change, but it's how we're doing these things. So it's like, okay, so 10 years later, we're doing all of this, we're making all these changes in kids, and now we can't do it. And I'm going, you know, what if we just started off the first time and we just did it for free? Because if I was going to spend all the money anyways, I wish I just said, you know what, let's just get as many kids as we can in here. Let's just rock this. You know, and give it away. And if we have to do parent stuff at the end, cool, let's do the parents too. Because now you're creating transformable change. Like when you're creating that, I wasn't like this before and now I am like this. Like that's not something that just happens overnight, and that's not just telling somebody how to do something.
If you would have asked me that same question, do I want to be the smartest one in the room or the most ignorant one in the room? If I was 21, I would have wanted to be the smartest one. But now at 33, when you said it, I'm like, I want to be the most ignorant because then I have the most to learn. But that takes time, and that's a process to get to that point. But it seems like some people never take that time. They never want to take those steps to move in that right direction. But what you're doing has an inherent blessing in the community more than what a sidewalk would do in certain circumstances.
Yeah, well, imagine if you get everybody to their potential.
Yeah.
Like, are we then struggling for how to make ends meet?
Yeah.
Like imagine this. Take your kids and make them all 30 years old, right, with wisdom. And then start with nothing, all of you, and then go, hey, let's figure out a business plan of how all of us are going to work. And then let's say everybody starts to pitch in their thing, because they're 30 now. They're not little kids. They're not
right.
like, so now they're different because of all of life's experiences. So if you do this with kids and you're creating a better pathway to their future and they're thinking differently and they're not caught up in a culture of like, hey, me.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I'm doing this is because of that coach. Now think about it. That one person changed my life to traject, and now I'm coming back to say, let's do it again.
It didn't cost any money either.
Yeah, let's go do it to other people. So then when that occurs, what is the potential of putting money into helping kids? Like we talked about that thing that's going on with the sailing club.
Yeah.
Like I see it as this mechanism for, how do you create transformation?
Yeah.
And if that does it, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
Like in 10 years from now, they're going to look back and go, man, this place is awesome. It's doing this. Yeah, but remember, it's a gamble if it's going to work.
Yeah.
But if it does, awesome.
And maybe if more people thought like that in the beginning, in the early stages, maybe there would be less mental health issues, maybe less depression, maybe less things along that nature, because people are better at, back to what we were talking about, thinking for themselves because they've had those right leaders along the way.
Yeah. Well, look at when we were talking about like, why is it, this is not happening? I said, there's so many hacks. So if your experience is with a hack, you don't have distinction of effective leadership, right? So you're so used to the hack that you reproduce the hack. Yeah. So you're screaming at kids. So when you love the sport, I love basketball. Okay, cool. I want to coach too. Yeah, I know how to coach because I remember when my coach rolled out the balls and he had a whistle and he did like, okay, so what were the ways that he did? How do you build a session plan? I have no idea. Okay, why don't we want to like get into coaching through assistant coaching? Like, why don't we find a mentor and research coaching first? But we just jump into it, or we're put into a volunteer position, and then how can you blame a volunteer? They gave you the whistle, and I'm going to sit there and like, I'm just not going to put my kid in that position, or I'm going to actually talk to them about it. And again, you're talking to a child, but at least you're giving them enough support to think differently. Like when my kids, my two boys, when they were playing for their first middle school game, before their very first game, they had 30 days of practice opportunity. But during the 30 days, the coach for the first 2 weeks, they just jogged for like 2-3 miles before practice, and he was kind of weeding out kids and this and the other. And then during the next 2 weeks, I think it was like they wouldn't know that they had practice. It wasn't like 5 full days, Monday through Friday. It was like, hey, we're not going today. And it was just, it was kind of sporadic. So it's the night before the game and they're all excited. And I'm not trying to be a jerk to them or anything. So they're like, oh, hey, Dad, you going? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going, man. I'm so excited to see you guys play. They're like, man, it's going to be so much fun. And I go, hey, guys, can I talk to you for a second? They're like, yeah. I said, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And I want you to be excited because it is going to be fun. I said, but how many days did you guys practice out of these 30 days? And they're like, well, we missed, I don't know, like 15, 17. I go, okay, all right. And do you guys have a full court press? No. Do you guys have an out of bounds play? No. How's everybody doing like with their understanding of the free throw line? I'm like, oh man, we got kids. Okay. So you guys paint me a picture of what you think the game is going to look like. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's going to be chaotic. I said, do you think people are going to dribble off their foot? They're like, yeah. I said, do you think, yeah. I said, do you think the refs are going to make some calls that probably don't? Yeah. You think the coach is going to scream at you? I'm like, yeah. I said, okay, with knowing all of that, do you still want to play? Like, yeah, I do. They thought, yeah, I do. I go, okay. Now I just want you to realize, if all that's happening, if you can stay calm during all that storm, is to realize it is going to happen, but you're still the same person now. Yeah. Watch how everybody else is going to deal with that emotion. And if they flip out or this, that, and the other, it's because they didn't prepare themselves for the reality. Like everyone has an expectation. You're going to go play basketball. It's 5-on-5. It's going to be amazing, man. It's like, okay, is it? No. Every game you ever played, you were floating on a cloud and it was a magical unicorn. It was amazing. You made every shot. Yeah. No. Okay. So you're going to play. You've never played in a middle school game. This is going to happen. Just be ready. As soon as the game's over, Dad, everything you said happened. I can't even believe this was like this. I said, cool. Yeah, I'm proud of you guys because I saw you guys never gave up. You kept playing, even when the whistles were going off and the coach was going nuts and you guys didn't know anything. You just, like, they're like looking at me in the crowd, smiling. I'm like, cool. Just be ready.
Yeah. I think that getting them ready for all case scenario conversation in the beginning helps them control those emotions and how they react to them when it actually happens. And I learned this through talking to I told you I talked to a couple fighters and professional world champions and grappling, things like that. The mental preparation that they do, and as you mentioned that, it made me think of them because of visualization drills. They visualize everything before it ever becomes a thing, well before it ever even happens. But it helps them handle those high pressure, high stakes situations.
Sure.
But I do think, I'll speak for myself, earlier in my life, I reacted to emotions too much, and I think that was part of my problem, part of my growth and trying to figure out. But,
well, you ever look at it too, say it was necessity to who you are today?
Bingo.
Because if you didn't have them, it's like, well, when am I going to explore that moment to realize this is how so like going back to like how I look at sports, here's a platform to celebrate of how people are making choices in adverse situations.
Right.
So you're just watching. This is how they handle pressure. This is how they handle all the excitement. And it's like, okay, like you're going to yell at a kid because he's in front of 1,000 people and he swung at somebody, or because he's always been in front of that situation. He's like, he wakes up every day in that situation. It's like, so it's crazy. It's like going, okay,
that's his normal.
Like let's look at this and go, okay, this is where he is spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, all these things. Like that's just a choice that he made. That doesn't label him for that for the rest of his life. It's just that's where he was in that moment. And if he looks back now, he's at a different moment. I come over here and I make a mistake and I swing on somebody, right? And now I'm over here with that experience and I'm a different person than I was 5 minutes before I made the swing. So now I look at it and go, man, why didn't I do that? I have awareness when I lose it. But maybe I'll have to revisit that 10 more times, or maybe that one time is the one that I get to actually learn the lesson and go, I never want to feel like this. Because when I did it, I wasn't looking good, I wasn't feeling good, and I wasn't feeling safe. And I did the exact same thing. I didn't make that person look good, feel good, or feel safe. It's the triple whammy. And when you have it, it's an emotional landmark. I'll never forget this day. And that's more powerful than any conversation. What are you doing, kid? You should. That's not respect. Why do you keep trying to pump your definition of respect in my head as if it's going to stay?
Emotional goofy. Landmark. I like that. The
one
that sticks.
When you think about these things, like we all know our scariest moment, our most fun moment. We never talk about the most boring moment. I mean, maybe there is like some ultimate boredom moment. Like no one's sitting there like excited to talk about study hall. They're always talking about something that was emotionally like, man, I was so scared.
Driven by some sort of emotion.
And when you have that, when it's all linked in, it's those moments people go back to their childhood and they're like, man, that moment, that person made me feel this, and it's like, I can remember the temperature in the room. I can remember this. I can remember, it's like, for some reason, that sensation goes, I have all of this and it's stuck somewhere in my brain and I'm going to have it for a long time.
And that's hard for people to sometimes break away from. If it's a negative situation, a negative emotional landmark, like have a hard time maybe defining themselves as that for way too long.
And a lot of times too is like if it's happening like as an adult, we look back at things and like, let's say we made a business decision and someone comes up and says, hey, Steve, I'm thinking about doing some small marketing with this. Now, I've done that already. Don't do that. Well, you've never done it with me. Like you're thinking this is the exact same moment in time, and people do this a lot. Like they'll go, yeah, I've already done that stuff. It's ineffective.
Not gonna work.
It's like okay, but hey, we're gonna do this. If you could give us a chance to, you guys were gonna, okay, all right, and you got a background in that, and you guys got the financial, okay, okay, let's try it. But some people shut it down right away. Like I remember this one time where in high school, my freshman year, we're doing archery, right? So like you go over and like it's like, hey, get in groups of 2, one person grab the bow, someone go grab 3 arrows, right? So we're going over here, and I see this one arrow, and it doesn't have it has like one feather on the back. My curiosity is like, I wonder how that would fly, right? I'm like, man, that's weird. So I grab it. So we're sitting there, and like my partner goes and I collect the arrows, and it's my turn, right? And I take that first one with the one feather, and I shoot it, and it's like
all over the place.
And right away, the teacher knows it. What the hell? What are you doing? What are you doing? Like just screaming, right? And then he asks this question out to everybody, right? And he's like, what kind of person would take with it? And some kid, like, the most popular kid is like, a damn moron or something like that, right? So I just looked at him and looked over, and I'm like, wow, I was just curious. I didn't mean any harm.
Yeah.
I was just curious to see how that went.
Yeah.
But if we're going to sit here and like demolish somebody for their curiosity, it's goofy.
It can be dangerous in the long term. Was that an emotional landmark for you that day?
Oh, because I'm telling you, here I am 47, and that happened more than 30 years ago. Wow. But I still remember, I'm like going, that leader said that, and they had a point. Maybe it could have come back, but they could have said, hey, I appreciate your curiosity.
But that could have hurt somebody.
But the facts are that could have hurt somebody. What if next time, everybody, if you have something you want to try, just bring me in on it, and we'll see if we can do it when it, okay.
Versus the quick reaction of yelling, scolding, getting everyone else, someone else involved into scolding you for your curiosity.
Now with that relationship, I know, because like when people get upset and they're screaming at something, they think the lesson is to the kid, like, don't do this. And like, now you've learned your lesson, don't do this. No. All I've learned is I've learned what makes you upset, and I learned how you act when you're upset. Because I'm watching you. Like, I know I spilled the milk, but I'm watching you saying, I'm raising my voice, I'm taking out my leather belt to hit you with it, and I'm going, okay, now I know how you react to adverse situations.
Yeah.
And now you think that when I'm later on in life, when you want to talk to me about, like something you found in my room or this, that, and the other, that I'm going to tell you it, I already know how you react to when you get upset.
Yep.
Like, so I'm not going to go trigger that again, because if you get upset, you're just going to hit me. And so when kids know it, they know, okay, now I'm just going to be quiet. Okay, I'm going to get into my submissive space. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, tell them I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, because this really comes from me. This is you telling me as a puppet to go,
that I should be sorry.
Hey, John, I'm sorry. Okay, we're good. Oh, shake his hand. We're good. Oh, you're going to force us? Okay, shake hands. Everything's better. Great, thanks. That's the world.
Yeah. and can be what leads to some of the problems that the world finds itself today in, maybe. Yeah,
well, again, I think one of our themes in this is distinction. And, if we don't recognize how we're doing it, we're not even exploring other ways to do it.
Yeah, and it might be easier in some cases to not explore those things. But I don't want to be that person that takes the path of least resistance. You only get one life, you know? You only get one chance at this.
If you do, just go on it. That could be scary.
Sure.
Because you're doing something and you don't even realize the chaos. Because most people won't tell you when you're doing it.
Right. And then with kids, it can become, because an old phrase is a good one. They not necessarily listen to what you say, but they do watch what you're doing. Right. Yeah. Then you can create a cycle. Yeah. Then your kids act the same way you did and react the same way you did in the situation, and then it becomes generation after generation, cycle after cycle.
Yeah. Like the whole hypocrisy thing is like with my kids now. It's like there's just open dialogue, and some people may not understand it.
Yeah. Or think you're standoff, like you said earlier.
They're like, why are you? And I said, well, didn't I do that? Didn't they just bring up the reality that I said this and did that the other day? Like, yeah, but I mean, that's your kid. I'm like, that's a 19-year-old that's sharing a relationship that looks to make me better. Like, hey, if your integrity is off, it's like, well, let's get back on integrity. Like your intentions aren't to lie about it or not to, like, if your intentions are to keep it, okay, let's get back in the game. Let's keep going. But thank you for letting me know I was doing that, because, I don't want to be somebody who doesn't have integrity and like I'm in some image space, like,
right.
Or then when someone brings up to me, like, shut your mouth. Would you ever tell me I don't do that? And then you walk over to your wife like, do I not do that? geez, I didn't realize that.
Well, that's back to that self-discovery and self-awareness, or if you're lucky enough to have good leaders around you or mentors, help you see that for yourself, or parents, or whatever the case may be.
It's hard when people get to that space too. Like, I always go back to that coach. I know so many assistant coaches that went into that program and they were silenced because there was no invitation for what do you think? Because when you're the author of your righteousness and you think it is the rightest right, when someone comes in and creates some sort of thought-provoking questions to the other, you kind of like, what do you know?
Yeah.
And that was going on. So you would see people just go in and come out. And they'd be like, hey, you want to come back next year? No, I'm done.
No,
I got other things to do. If I just want to sit and watch and listen to you all day, I'll record you.
Yeah. I'll listen to it on a podcast. I'll play it back.
Yeah. And that's what I think that's what he created. It's like, when your relationships aren't as valued, like when people aren't pursuing around you then it's like you don't have any value. You're like, to them. Like, it's not like you don't say I'm not valuable, but they're like, so, yeah, I really like hanging around because I feel like we're getting better. We're doing things. Yeah, I really like hanging around you because you make me feel like crap all the time. Yeah, I really like hanging around you because it's always your point of view and you don't want me to talk. Hey, I really wanted to get coaching and I really wanted to work with kids, but then I realized whenever we go, you don't want me to talk to the kids. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it doesn't quite fit.
It's like you didn't even give me any exercise. Like, even if I'm a beginning coach, give me 3 pages.
Yeah.
Give me 10 minutes to work with the bigs or the perimeter or put something in and then help me to critique what I'm doing, like disciple me. But, if I just go in there and you're just doing everything, it's like, it's silly. Or if I don't say it exactly the way you want me to say, there's a standard there that I can only imagine what the kids are going through.
And I'll pivot here because there was one more thing I wanted to ask you, and I know we're probably running out of time here soon. But this Hoops 360, I've seen 360 Hoops. Yeah. You're somehow partnered with them. I saw the hoop. It showed it to my son. He's like, first of all, that thing looks sweet. Like, how do we play on one of those? But what is 360 Hoops or Hoops
360 Hoops? Yeah. I just started working with them.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was employed by them probably about a month and a half ago. So the co-founders, Anthony Gomez and Shane Bray. Shane has a background in PE. His family's in coaching. His brother is actually the head coach of Notre Dame.
Oh, okay.
So Anthony his son was actually in Coach Bray's, Shane Bray's programs. So anyways, they had this inspiration, like, how do we get more youth engaged? And it's interesting because without them knowing they were doing it, they were actually looking at the consumer. So it's like, how do you build something that's consumer requested? And if you think about with kids just want to have fun.
Yeah.
So the traditional game in today's world is like, it's a great game. It's not broken, but what kids don't possess in skill set can be their adverse situation to quit. Hey, I'm not as good as you as dribbling, or I can't do this, or I'm running north and south and I'm not even touching the ball.
So they might stop altogether.
Yeah. So they go to the wall and they sit down, right? So in a PE class, how do you take a form of this and say, hey, this is a fun sport, but how do we make it kind of like the pickleball of tennis? So you shorten it. So they had this idea, and he put 3 backboards together, created that triangular deal, and it had the 3 goals. And he said, what if we put this in the middle and then we did a ring around it, and then we can go 3-on-3-on-3. So it's likely 9 people can play this game. So I kind of got on, like, about a year ago. I was talking to them, and we sat down, we had dinner, and we're on the phone a lot. And I was like, I really see this as a great feeder program, because everyone's end goal is not to be an NBA player.
Right.
But if you take away kind of the expectation that everyone's thing is, you just make it, it's like fun in the backyard with grandma.
Yeah.
It's like, I like having fun. I like playing kickball. Yeah. Like, I remember dodgeball as a kid. Like, now we're just going to take it and say, look, you can score from any angle. You're always in the game, and you have an ability to get touches. So you're going to move and you're going to have opportunities. Now let's make it so that you give everything that you want. And now if they choose to say, I really like this. And what's hidden in the fun is actually getting better at something. So now all of a sudden they go play the other game. They go, hey, man, nice shot. You're really good around the basket. And you're like, hey, I didn't even realize that I'm better at finishing because I was playing another game. and it actually had some concepts and stuff in it that helped me with that. So that you're inspiring kids through another form. So you're like, it's not that saying like, hey, this game right here is the ultimate game and we don't want you. It's like, hey, let's look at it in a different way. Let's innovate and look to give the consumer what it is they really want. And without them knowing, okay, yeah, they're doing less running up and down, but now they're doing more, that mountain lion thing I was talking about. They have to get down a little bit more, and they have to actually, they have to guard 3 baskets instead of 1.
And finishing, you have 3 options, but you also have 9 people in there, right? So it makes it its own challenge in itself.
So it's interesting in the sense that, here's this innovative way that no one's ever thought to look at basketball. Like, yeah, you can play 3-on-3 on half court, but here's another way to do it. And so I've gone out to my basketball network and shared videos, and just the feedback is interesting. Some people, it's that open mindset. They're like, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
And then you start to talk to them about like, okay, you're looking at it from a 45-year-old perspective, and that like, I want you to be 10 again, right? Remember when you saw a monster truck and how exciting it was? You'd be like, man, that thing can jump. It is cool, man. Look at all that mud. Take that sensationalism and think, hey, man, look at this goal. Like, look all the scoring you can do on it. Look like those are the eyes you're thinking about. Like when you give somebody a video game arcade, you're the customer by buying it, but the consumer then, of course, is the kids coming into it. So they want to come in and they want to play it, but you've bought all the games. So when you're looking at schools or sports industry leaders, like let's say the Orlando Magic. Okay, we want to author a message. We want to create health and wellness as a message to youth around Central Florida. Okay, well, let's partner with 360 Hoops. Let's work together. And what if we could put one of these in 20 schools?
Yeah.
And you could customize them. You could put the school's colors around it. And when they wheel them out in gym, you've created an innovative approach as a feeder for what the consumer wants. The kids want fun. You've just given it to them. You've given them a monster truck. And now when everybody walks in the gym, they go, man, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
They don't do that at the gym. They don't do that regularly. They say, oh, this is a nice gym.
Yeah.
Because that kind of thing is over. It's like it's done so much. You've seen the traditional court everywhere.
Right.
It's either really nice or it's average. But you see that. Like every time you see a monster truck, you're like, man, look at the wheels on that thing.
Yeah.
That's a shelf life conversation in marketing and messaging. Now they come out and they're like, oh yeah, well, the Orlando Magic, they created this opportunity to work with our school. They're trying to get help. Like that's what people, in business want.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just another way to look at it and say, okay, how can we work with people? But the end game is to work for kids, is to get them going, get them active.
Yeah.
So.
And an awesome cause,
Yeah.
and to your credit, my son, when he saw it, we watched a couple videos, and then we watched one of like 3 people dunking at one time on 3 different hoops. I'm like, all right, this is dope. Because in the beginning, I was like, how would it? I didn't understand it, but then looking at it a little more now, talking to you, but you probably get the diehard basketball fans that probably put up a wall, or the purist
right
that shouldn't be out here.
What is this gimmick?
Can't change the game.
I know. I know what you're thinking. I was there because I was at first. I was like, my head's hurting. 3 goals.
It looks hard. It looks harder than you might think.
It does, because it's so challenging. But it's like when you play a board game with your family, or it's like the holidays and it's like all the aunts and uncles sit down.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we got this new game. It's called Doobly-Doo. And everyone gives it the first 5 minutes. It's like, is this engaging? Is this like, it's just a lot of fun. Yeah. I think that's kind of where the market is with this. It's like, hey, wheel it into a gym.
Yeah.
Watch the reaction.
Yeah.
And watch how they play.
Yeah.
The court is there. Like the proof is already there. The metrics are already there when because I was a gym teacher for a little while, or a sub. Go into a regular gym, get the basketballs out, watch how many kids sit down. The majority of the kids sit down because they for whatever variable is, they feel inadequate. It's not fun. They're not able to do it. It's like it's whatever. It's not looking good, feeling safe. It's one of those things.
Sitting in the corner.
Yeah, they're going to sit down. It's more fun to do that, to socialize. Now create something new, take out all the adversity. All right. You and I come from a generation where it's like, what? Take out the we have to run north south. But if you take it out, the beginning, like we talked about, I mean, because again, we're talking about how these things are woven.
Yeah.
Remember, long-term athlete development said when people are 5 or 6, it's about playing and having fun. It didn't say it's about introducing the rules and learning how to train and being competitive and learning to win. It's tactical understanding of the game.
It's about having fun.
That's going to come.
Joy.
But the beginning is fun. It's like, man, this is fun. Like when the real world tries to create real rules and real stuff, it's not fun. Like, I mean, how do you take a bowl of ice cream and make it not fun to eat it? Like, because that's what we're doing with kids at times, you know, with some of these hacks. They're screaming. They're telling them the righteous way to approach it. They're telling them what they're not doing, how they're ineffective at doing it. And then all of a sudden it goes, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not fun.
It's scary, and I don't have any social media other than YouTube and Spotify and LinkedIn because of certain reasons, but I like it for my platform. But some of the growing thing on social media right now are these life hack videos. It's interesting you keep mentioning hacks and kind of the inherent negatives to it, but it's a growing category in youth as well, is to try to figure out different hacks to things or the easier way to go about it. So it's scary in a sense.
Yeah, well, I want to be responsible when I'm saying, like, I see those videos. It's pretty cool, like when they show you like what you can do with like a bottle cap or something like that. Yeah, like I'm saying more hack in the sense that somebody has skipped the true responsibility in education of researching how to effectively do something. You know, like you know, you could say a substitute can be a hack for the teacher at times, right? So we get someone just to fill in. But when like when I was going in, I didn't have a certificate for teaching. I was just taking that position because someone wasn't there. When someone takes on the role and they haven't educated themselves to effectively doing it, that's kind of my use of the word hack. It's like, you know, here's this person who doesn't have the education. They don't have really the true credit and skill set to do this. You know, like, I mean, we think it's okay because everybody just wants to have sports, but we're not looking at it going, you know, this is part of the variable that's creating this mechanism for what the end result is. You know, a bunch of screaming, you know, upset people that are, you know, wanting to achieve something, they're not getting there, you know, and it's a lot of too is, I think it's inevitable, is like how it spawns is like we talked about that city league. You're not getting what you want, and you go to try to make your own. Dad has his kids on the team. He doesn't like what's going on, so he creates his own team. And when we keep doing this, you know, we're doing this because we can, but we're not doing it because, you know, like we think we can do it better, but have we
do we really know?
Do you walk into a doctor's office and go, man, I could do this better?
I wouldn't try to. No. Well, listen, Pat, you've been real generous with your time. This was an awesome conversation. The way, the perspectives you have and what's shaped through your life from starting, you know, late into basketball and the coaches and the moments that you can remember, man, this is exactly why I wanted to talk to you, because what you're talking about speaks to what I'm trying to accomplish as well. And it's to sound selfish, but for myself, but be the best version of you in order to help my kids get to the best version of them in whatever way that shapes. But I think it starts with looking at yourself and understanding yourself and figuring out what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And what you've accomplished, man, is amazing, you know, and in the short amount of time you've already been alive, and I know it's not over, but you know, and it sounds like a lot of things are just getting started, but what you've already done and the messages that you're sharing, I think can just flat out help a lot of people in the space that they're in right now.
I appreciate it. You know, again, I think that when we started this, we kind of knew kind of where the themes was, and it puts a smile on your face. You know, it's like, oh, this is going to be a good conversation. And you know, it's one in which, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I do know that through my experience that I've excelled in patience. You know, it's taking in and being okay. You can see the components. You can see what may be working and what may not be working. You may not know the agenda, or you do, but it's being patient to be okay with what's ever happening and not looking to define it all the time. It's like going, okay, all right, well, that was that. And then just walking out like that. No, like this is a bad experience, or this was not labeling it, just going, well, that happened. And that's it. Yeah.
Patience is a virtue, you know. It's one of those old phrases, but so true. But it's one that if you react to your emotions quickly, that patience doesn't come into play as much as it should in some cases. That's a good way.
You start to pick up those trends, and what if you didn't have to, let the trend go so long? Like once, it happens twice, you get to 3 times, you created the awareness. Now how do you make it so you don't do it anymore?
Yeah.
Or, how do you affect change? And then how do you also understand when you don't have to go affect change because it's not even asked or requested?
Interesting point, because it's not even asked or requested.
Yeah, because early on in my career, I'd be like, hey, man, I think I can help you. And they'd be like, hey.
Whoa, hey.
Yeah, the one they'd be like, I didn't ask.
Okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. And my wife is like, hey, you're killing yourself. Like, what's going on? So, no, I appreciate this time.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, there is some interesting content here.
Like you said, it put a smile to my face. Hopefully it did to yours. And that's all I'm trying to accomplish. And just honestly get better at having real conversations like this is the whole point of this thing, and grow in the community. Like I said, I'm a second-gen Floridian. I got 70 family members that live here, and obviously a large team of previous employees, and things along that nature. But this was fun, and if you ever want to do it again or ever want to partner on anything, man, I'd love to.
Awesome.
I try to learn from you as much as I can.
Same here.
Awesome, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Yeah, appreciate it.